I will call the meeting to order. Overview of Zoom operations. Everybody's familiar with those. Public forum, opportunity for citizens not on the agenda to briefly share comments or concerns. You're not here for comments.
I am.
You are?
I have a comment on the proposal for the recommendation that would be posted
Okay, for the
COVID, for wearing masks.
The mask.
okay, so that's a scheduled,
Yeah, we'll do that in one.
it's a scheduled item, so.
Michelle's going to join us in a minute. She forgot that we started at 6.
Alrighty, so no public forum. All right, consideration of resolution supporting face coverings in enclosed public spaces.
So hopefully folks had a chance to review it. I can put it on the screen if you'd like.
If you would, I did review it. I liked it, but did you see the?
I read it. And I just have a simple comment.
Okay.
It's not a big thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it.
I'm sorry, I think we are.
Yeah.
Well.
The heck with what you said.
Never mind what Dr. Fauci says.
There you go.
Just wear a bandana.
It's weird.
I have it to share if you want, Bill.
Yeah, that would be great. If I'm
Okay.
it's not showing up and as an option.
I was thinking Darla and I were gonna have to do it.
I have it actually.
Let's see if I can do it. Yeah.
Do you want me to, well, if I look for it, everyone will know what I'm looking for, but that's okay.
Well, I still want to do it. It's funny. It's when you share stuff now, it's just a weird icon that doesn't show me the preview. Maybe something's
Right.
changed.
So I don't
in
know
Zoom.
what it, yeah.
Right. Oh, it's the
what
same
I'm
for you.
clicking on.
Okay. Well, that's annoying. That's very annoying. Why is that? Oh, they've broken something, obviously.
But that's okay. Everybody can hear it all right.
I can turn it up, I think, too.
Let me see if I can. No, I can't do that. Well, this is annoying.
Yeah. I'm glad.
You there?
I guess I'm
Hold
glad
on one
it's
sec.
not just me.
And I can't even see it. It tells me the application, but I can't even see Word, which should be open. Well, that's very frustrating. All right, let's see. If
I'm going to try something and see.
Maybe that's-
So now you're seeing my,
Yeah, you can. I can see your screen. So if you find the file, you should be able to open it and
yeah.
hopefully display it.
That's
annoying.
That's how I do it. Oops, wrong one.
Headphones. I like the speaker. Yeah.
Oh, they can't hear us?
Yeah, they
No,
can
see,
hear
it doesn't. It can't
There
do
we
it.
go.
All right.
Wrong
Let's see if I
one.
can do it.
Woohoo!
Didn't mean to hit that one.
No, that's all good. I'm
That's the one
glad
I
we
wanted.
finally figured out the sound here in the room. And it was really loud.
Can you see the resolution now?
No, see, it opens up in a separate area.
Oh, gee.
All right, let me. I'm going to boot you. Let me try. Huh. Well, that is super annoying.
Yeah. So what did you see?
Um,
before?
You want me to see if
Well,
I can share it for mine?
It was just your
My
just your
directory?
desktop. Yes.
Yeah.
Hang on. Let's see if we can do this. Oops. Let me try mine and just see if we can get it. Oh my God! Now I gotta quit and reopen. Well, this is a disaster.
Let me do it again. This time I've got, can you see it?
No,
Here.
it's just the files.
Jeez.
I think I have it from the email that you sent me earlier today. Let me see if I can.
Well, it's not the file. Oh, okay. So mine's come up now.
Okay. I'm gonna try
Okay, here
it.
I got it. It took a while for it to come in. There we go.
Yeah, huh.
Yeah, that's really weird. Some glitch in Zoom, I guess.
Gotta be, can't be us.
No, because I've noticed it before when I tried to share something. It no longer displayed what you wanted to share. So this is Val. So I had a couple edits to this, but we can look through this and chat. And also I'd like to get comments from other folks too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll let you start,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
because that way we don't waste our time
Yeah,
talking.
I'd like,
Well, I was kind of, and I'm gonna listen to what you guys have to say, but I can't read that from here, but at the concluding sentence, which said, be it resolved.
Yep.
Says
Yeah.
now, therefore, be it resolved.
Yeah,
Okay, read that sentence out loud to me.
now therefore be it resolved that the town of Bristol Select Board hereby strongly recommends for the health and safety of the community that face coverings that cover the nose and mouth be worn in indoor public buildings and spaces.
Yes, so that's a great sentence, but I believe it should say masks, not face coverings. Because that is all the medical and public health recommendations is very specific with masks. You know,
You're thinking if it says face covering, it's that thing that wraps around, comes down to the neck,
well,
and
But
I've been told
the
that's
most
not.
current recommendations are that cloth masks aren't really effective. That really you should be wearing a surgical mask or an N95. However, you know, that's not easy for everybody. But I believe that bandanas and neck gaiters are not
Neck gaiters, that's
appropriate,
what I was-
not appropriate.
No, that's what they're saying. they're not-
Because it has to be snug, otherwise you're just breathing out the side. You know, so it should be a mask, and if we're gonna make a recommendation, although it's not a mandate, it should be an accurate recommendation. And so I think masks is more appropriate than face covering.
I don't have a problem.
I don't know.
Should we add or shield? Because some people can't wear masks.
A shield, they're just.
yeah, I think it's, I mean, yeah, the shield isn't going to be doing much. I think that's sort of gone past. I mean, some people obviously have to do that because they can't wear a mask, but I wouldn't worry because this is only a resolution and it's just a recommendation. There's nothing that it's not a mandate. It's not, we're not demanding that they do this. I think it just mask is fine. Now, if you want to, so I did a little bit of edit just to actually make it shorter. Let me show you that and we can do a little read through. Let's see, well, if this actually works again.
While you're doing that, Ian, my understanding from what you're saying is if they're wearing a shield, it's the same as,
I guess,
they're just breathing out the sides of it. It's not protecting.
it's not protecting other people and it wouldn't be protecting me, for example,
Right.
breathing in.
So this is mine. And what I did was because it's just a resolution and not a mandate, I took out some of the wording, the exemptions and things like that, which we kind of talked about last week, trying to shorten it, just make it as easy to understand as possible. And I can send this to you, Val. And so my little changes were face masks strongly recommended in indoor public spaces. I've changed it from what was coverings to masks since the CDC and the Vermont Department of Health say masks on their website. And yeah, every mention of covering was just mask. And then I just sort of bolded the main bit, wearing face masks strongly recommended, and then did a couple additions. And Darla and I we sent back and forth last week. One of the additions that Darla had was sort of the public settings will include but not be limited to retail establishments, just so we're particular about what that is. And again, I think we can just have this as simple as possible like this, just because it's a resolution and it's a recommendation versus a mandate. And I've also done up a little sign. Let's see if I can share that with you. Let's stop that. And then if businesses want to use this, I've got this. Everyone can see that. Face mask strongly recommended, and just the date and the details of the town at the bottom there, just so you can see. And so I was thinking of, Maura was on last week from Simon Says, the ability to have her put that in her store along with her own sign requires masks, helps her younger employees to be able to see something official from the town, even though it's just a resolution. And this is similar to what other towns have done.
And these have to be reviewed, what did you, remind me, is it 35 days or 15
45.
days? 45. I knew it was somewhere in there.
5.
Knew I had a
I
file.
knew it had a 5 in it.
I like that, but aren't there businesses in town, Ian, that have notices on their doors that says masks required?
Yes, and they were
So are they
looking,
gonna do both? Or?
I think we can give them the
We're
option.
assuming-
Choice.
we're assuming that some of them will, they were just asking for us to put it, to do something so that, which we already had, but they wanted us to do a resolution or a mandate, and Bruce can't enforce anything, so,
Sure.
unless it's a law.
Mhm.
And he was getting calls when we said, you know, we wanted people to wear masks, he was getting calls wondering why he wasn't doing anything about it, and people were getting mad at him, so.
Yeah.
This is an attempt to tell the public that we support the fact that a business wants you to wear a mask,
Mhm.
and to make it clear that, you know, this isn't something that if they don't wear their mask when they come in, you can call Bruce in for.
Right. Yeah, I like this simple notice. It's good.
Any other board members? Michelle, you got any input? I see you were there somewhere.
No, it's fine with me.
You sound tired, like you've been shoveling or something.
Yeah, 3 hours.
Oh,
Where the heck is Chad?
On the tractor plowing.
Oh,
Okay, so if folks like that, that's good.
And can you go back to that last wording though? So
On the sign or in the resolution?
resolution.
Sure.
So they come into the town library, the town hall, town fire department, are we gonna strongly recommend or you have to come into this building,
we're not requiring it
we're
here.
not requiring it here then?
Well,
Okay.
well, I'd like to discuss that because I personally, I think that we should. We have more authority with town buildings to be able to ask the public to wear a mask. And I feel that we should do that, if only to protect our employees. The library is already asking that patrons wear a mask. And you know, it's not a recommendation, it's you have to wear a mask at the library. And I feel that we should do the same at Howden Hall or Holly Hall. And so that might be something where we would require a mask in those buildings, and we could have a separate sign that would say required, and then we could have other signs that businesses could use. My one concern with that is that unfortunately it's like double messaging from the town. But I think it's a safer option to be able to ask the public, if you come into Holly Hall, that you wear a mask.
To ask the people visiting to wear a mask. We're not telling
Yes.
our employees that they have to unless they
No,
want.
if people are in their offices and things like that, as Sharon mentioned last week, I think that's fine. You know, I think it's the idea is that, you know, you're in your employee bubble anyway, kind of, and it's just, you know, you're just reducing the risk to employees when people come in. And I know that we have the shields there and stuff like that, but there is traffic that comes into Holly Hall, and it's just an attempt to, you know, not spread this around if we can help it. But I wasn't sure what other people thought about that. You know, we could also use the strongly recommend sign on the town buildings as well, and that's a single message from the town. But it would be, I'd like to hear people's thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would prefer the strongly recommends. I mean, I'm wearing a mask tonight because we're passing this resolution, and I feel it's kind of, it doesn't send a very good message if I'm not willing to follow what we're passing. So I think that the strongly recommends is gonna get you, everybody that the majority of the people, if there's a sign there, are wearing masks when they go into a building. And if they don't take the time to read it, they're not gonna know whether it's required or whether you're just
Right.
recommending it.
Right, and you might have the confusion of seeing a required sign at one place and then a recommended at another, and you might question that. Well, why is that recommended and this required? So I think that the double messaging could be confusing. So I think, you know, strongly recommended in all areas is fine, and at least, you know, it allows us to put out a statement on this. It's not a mandate. Hopefully, we won't get a lot of calls with, you know, regarding this, since it's just a resolution and it's a recommendation. But we'll see.
I wonder if we can, I haven't thought this through, but I wonder if we can add a sentence or part of a sentence that references or supports businesses that choose to require them.
Hmm.
So it's clear in there. Just maybe just an add-on to an existing sentence.
Or we could strongly recommends and supports the business that require them.
Something like that.
I'm curious to hear from Meredith. Downstairs, we have the plexiglass in place, but upstairs, where there people might be coming in, you don't have that protection. I'm wondering, would you have, what would service you best?
Well, so at this point, we are requiring people, anybody that's coming into the upper part of the Holly Hall to wear a mask. So anybody who's doing Tai Chi or dance or any event, then you have to wear a mask. For Alex and I, just in the last week, we've been wearing it in the office, just because there's been some travel and just precautions.
It's not worth the risk,
It's not worth it.
not for the little inconvenience.
Right. So
I
do
think-
we, go ahead, Ian.
I was gonna say, in terms of responding to Val's suggestion, I think we just, for me, if we leave it as is, this is just the statement from the town. You know, we've already said that we support businesses doing what they feel is necessary. And I don't think this takes, not having that sentence, it doesn't take away from that. This is just the statement from the town and what we'd like to see. And then I think businesses, obviously a private business is going to do have their own requirements, whether it's required or whether it's recommended.
I understand what you're saying, but I wonder if we've said it, but we haven't put it in writing like this is. I feel like it might be, and what we were asked
It
by
would-
those businesses that came.
It would be more supportive of those businesses.
True.
Yeah,
Right
That's
under
true.
that second line where it starts public settings, we can conclude, and then.
I think you guys are
No.
gonna confuse the message. It's just kind of like the same thing, like making it mandatory in the town offices. You start putting that in there, I think you're just gonna confuse the message.
Well, it's only good for 45 days. If we find we have a lot of trouble with it, we can revise it.
25.
I know.
And the
Yeah.
business, and I told you, like, what happened to me last year over in Rochester in June, when I went in, and the guy says, you gotta wear a mask, and I thought the governor, and he said, no, the governor don't own this store, and the businesses can say that. I don't strongly recommend you wear one, I want you to wear one, or you can't come in.
Yeah, we've already stated that we
support our
support
businesses.
our businesses that require masks. Bruce, do you see anything wrong with this? Is there anything any red flags for you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because we're
I
trying
guess-
to,
Speaker, I'm
What-
guessing that any business that requires a mask probably won't put this in their window. Only because I think they're gonna say, well, it says you strongly recommend, not that you require. So if they require
Right.
a mask and they have their notices in there, they probably won't put this in their window.
Yeah, you're right, Michelle, you go to my wife where she works at Mountain Health, it doesn't say strongly recommend, it says you will wear a mask.
Yeah,
You
there's
come
several businesses.
Yeah,
And that's their right.
yeah,
and that's your right.
Right. No, I just didn't know if it was important for us to have that in writing as well. We have said it at a couple of meetings now, but we don't have it in writing.
it's in writing in the minutes, but it's not a document.
Correct.
It's not a
Yeah.
document
Yeah.
that the public can
But
readily
if-
see.
yeah.
And the public's not gonna see this. All they're gonna see is the sign, so.
Correct. Correct.
So I think I agree with Michelle. I think we're muddying the waters if we,
I mean, I think some businesses may, like Mike Simon says, I think it gives a little bit more weight, even though they're requiring, they can put this up and say, look, the town is strongly recommending this. You know, our policy is that it's required, and it's only to sort of hopefully negate any issues where someone gets into an argument about not wanting to wear a mask. But that's a whole another level of engagement outside of just having the signs.
Right.
Okay. Do we need a motion if we're all in agreement, a motion to pass this, or?
Yes, that would be
motion to
good.
accept it as revised, the revised one, or this version, however you want to do it.
I'll make a motion to accept this revised version of the resolution for masks for the town of Bristol.
Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye, or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, Ian.
Thanks,
No
Ian.
problem.
Yeah, you.
Thank you.
All right, budget workshop, recreation department. We'll start with the recreation department. Is that, do you want to go in the order they're here?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So we're gonna start with the recreation department. When we're done with that, we'll do fire, and then we'll do general budget, general fund and capital improvements after that.
Yep.
So Meredith is up.
Can Valerie or Ian share the budget screen?
Yeah, let me try here. There we go. Can you see it?
Hey,
Yep.
Wow.
All right, so, first off, any questions since you guys have already seen it?
Has anything changed since we've seen it?
Well, this is exciting. It has changed because I ran the number today and, we are at $28,355.50 for the program registration. So we're moving on up.
that's great.
The pottery is still the same, but vacation clay, we just did a blast, so we'll probably end up getting about another $500 towards the clay studio, which is great. We also are planning some of my mountain bike clinics to happen before July 1st. And I usually get about $3,000, $4,000 for those camps. So that'll help us out right before the end of the fiscal year. So the number that you see here will definitely change. It'll, I'm pretty sure that we'll get about another $7,000.
Meredith, I see you've got a number in there for swim. You're hopeful to be able to
Yeah,
get
so
swim
this-
going?
I've been working with Devin, I've been chatting with Devin. Right now, though, we're talking about February's open swim. It's the maximum, it's 15 people in the pool. So, Alex and I have been trying to figure out how we can make that successful.
Cycle people through.
Yeah, we might do 2 sessions for 8 to 10 and then a 10 to 12. One of the biggest things about the swim is that we got to get lessons from level 1 to 3 out to the public, because that's the drowning level. So we're
Prevention.
working really hard on, hopefully maybe April, we can do during the vacation break, the school vacation break, at least 2 hours of levels 1 through 3. And then in the summer, we're gonna start July 11th, going to August 6th, only level 1 through 3. The last week of the swim, upper levels, and then we're working with the lifeguard certification class to host a certification class at the end on August 7th and 8th. So we can actually help a lot of people who are prepping for that. So the swim thing is, we're hopeful. We know we can do a max of 15. We're gonna do something. We have to do something for those lower levels. You know, you got Bartlett, you got Bristol Pond, you got pools in the backyard, and we want to make sure that, these kids know how to just at least dog paddle.
Know what to do if they fall in the water.
Exactly.
Right.
How did the number of 16,000 come into? I know it's a revenue. So was that old from when Mount Abe had it, or
Yeah,
how did
so-
that number come up?
So Jen and I had chatted when it first came, when we first took it over, and it seemed when we saw the numbers, that was where we kind of set the goal. Last year we didn't hit that. I can't really see.
I don't see anything there for
Oh, it
2020.
didn't pop up, yeah, so,
Actually,
I
I mean, that's why I asked, should it be again 16?
Yeah, I think because it's been so difficult, with COVID and the maximum kids that we can have in the pool, I don't think 16 quite something that we can reach, but if we play our cards right, we'll get pretty far, pretty close to that. we're including, February and April,
So then should that 16,
be like,
10, I don't know, you
Yeah,
pick
so
a number, but because the revenue side affects what the taxes are gonna be.
yeah,
After you
so,
pay the budget.
and this is really hard to figure out. My gut and from my experience, I'm thinking if we do, we bring it down to like 12 or 13.
Hey Meredith, I have two questions for you. On the swim, you haven't showed an income for the swim since we took this over.
Well, that's kind of puzzling because I know we did bring in some funds for it. So let's see if I can pop in there. Give me a second. I can actually should be able to pull this up.
While you're looking for that, the other question I was asking, I know we've had COVID and it's really, your fees have taken a hit on that. Do you think you're going to be able to make that 55 this year?
The 55.
Yeah.
If I can kick in some gymnastics, so gymnastics, so the big two money makers that we definitely feel a hurt on is the Taekwondo and the gymnastics. Gymnastics definitely brought $20,000 in, and then Taekwondo was on a roll, and they were gonna, another 10 grand. So I can't do Taekwondo right now. It just doesn't work. So I'm working with Lindsay and we're trying to make something happen in March. We won't be able to get like the 20 grand that we need to get for that whole year working with Lindsay, Well, in reality, it's probably gonna be like 2 or 3, right?
I did see the hall rentals is up some, a little bit. coming
Yeah,
back.
and so what's great about that is ELP is doing a musical upstairs on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I've got Tai Chi. People are starting to their house can't hold 10 people. So they're like, let's go to the Holly Hall. And then we can invite like 15. Right now, we don't allow more than 60 people in the Holly Hall. We haven't had that either. The most we've had in there was 20. But with the kids, I'm not sure with the ELT how many they have. I think they said they were 30. Sorry, I have a hard time multitasking.
I have a question or comment to suggest.
Okay, so when I look at what
Oops, Val had a question.
yeah,
If you look at the actuals for 2021 of 50,000 and what was budgeted, you can see right there, plain as day, the revenue shortfall. And I sat in on a webinar Friday, VLCT hosted. Actually, it wasn't VLCT, it was a different organization, hosted a webinar on ARPA funding, and the beginning to get the folks' heads around the information that came out last week, the updated stuff from the Treasury. And revenue replacement got a lot of discussion, and just something to think about. That clear revenue loss would be something that would be eligible for ARPA funding if the select board chose to use some of that funding in that way. Just wanted to point that out.
So you're talking about the funding that's available to the town, not a separate, something we can apply for.
Something
Right,
out of
it's-
that one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in our bank account right now. Just
Woohoo.
transfer it. We have to document it, but there's still more to understand about this, the mechanics of it. But apparently, the revenue replacement aspect of the ARPA funding has very few restrictions.
for Michelle, so the amount that we made for the spring program was $14,174. And then additional $1,252 for any of our, any of our open swim program. That was dropped in,
In 2020,
when we took it over, so
That was pre-COVID,
right
right at the cusp of it.
yeah, so, then I just want to let you guys know, so the level of swimmer that we were teaching that brought in the most amount was that level 1, 2, and 3. We were losing money, I'd say, on the level 5 and 6 and guard start, which is that older, just about ready to go to the lifeguarding certification class. So with that level 1, 2, and 3, so maybe more realistic number is the 12,000 for bringing the revenue for swimming.
So I think it's a bad idea to lower it. If you exceed it, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So it just takes a little pressure off you guys.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess, coming back to Joel's question, the 12,000 probably sits better with the reality of what's going on.
Thanks, Meredith.
Thank you.
We're talking 22, 23. We're hoping things are back to somewhat normal by then.
Yeah. We keep hoping that.
Knock on wood.
Thank you, I really appreciate that talk through with the swimming. Any other questions before we keep moving on? All right, so with the appropriations, I've got 2 of the towns already sent in appropriations. Obviously, we're waiting for the other 2. Which is, I want to say, Moncton and Starksboro. So we'll see those guys coming through, and they pull through anytime now. Great numbers for revenue. The hub, the youth center event income, 38 came in with 36. That's $200. So that'll suppress that or go beyond that. And just to kind of talk about that real quick, that amount came from when we ran summer camps. We set aside hub summer programs. And so when we were able to just say this is a hub camp, the ages were a little bit older. So that's where we were able to meet that event income. The pottery studio is, I gotta tell you, Motlock is crushing it. She has a waiting list for her adult programs. I mean, there could probably be like a fist fight out in front just to get into the building. And with that, we've kind of only allowed 5 adults. So it's a wanted program. With the pottery studio, we used to be able to do 10. It's not very comfortable with 10 people. So we've gone to 6. Occasionally we'll do 8, depending on the style of like what the kids have signed up. Because some of those kids are able to go over to the wheel or go over to a different.
So they're not all at that table.
Exactly, yeah. Moloch, we haven't done the February or April vacation play. That's $135 price point, and we'll have 6 kids in that. So that gives you that. So she will be going above what we've asked. Holly Hall events. I did do we don't have breakfast with Santa anymore. We did the trolley rides. That came in about $395, which was great. That's really the only event that we have. It's just really hard. I will tell you though, I'm working with the library. We are planning on doing a murder mystery event. The price point is a little higher, so with the ability to have 60 people in the Holly Hall at a price point of $75 a couple, we'll be able to make some money. I'll tell you, it'll be hard to get 3,500. I think we probably, when we did the math, it was almost like $1,500 to $2,000. There's an add-on with this murder mystery, $25 if you want your kids to be babysat at a hall. So that there's some add-ons. And then, a 50-50 raffle tickets and a couple of ideas out there for that. And then the rental part it's going strong. So this doesn't show the $1,400 that we're expecting from ELP for renting out the Holly Hall. So we know that they're great for that, so that will be added in. I just haven't gotten a check, so I didn't want to put that in there. And then also the next session for Tai Chi, so that'll probably bring another probably $600 into the rental pool. And then we have our odds and ends.
It's good to see that rising considerably from last year.
Yeah. And all these folks have to wear masks when they're inside the Holly Hall. The line, the sponsorship donation, that's just kind of just hanging out there. The 200. I honestly can't quite remember what the plan was on that. Any questions on the revenue part?
I guess I'll bring that same one with the swimming.
Yeah.
Because your revenue is part of your budget.
Yeah.
Right, so if you don't think you're gonna get that Holly Hall events to 3,500, should that be a realistic number? So then it'll bring the overall taxes for not
Yeah.
up,
Well,
right?
no,
Am I correct in saying that?
I think that that's something that we need to take a look at. And so, with the murder mystery and everything keeps going, I would say that if we made it to this, took $1,500 off it and had it as a 2,000, would make me breathe a lot easier. Because I think I can get that, with the murder mystery and then a couple other events that we're just brainstorming, trying to figure out what we can do.
Right. I mean, knowing that we just don't know, what's going to happen next, if that's going to make it a little more comfortable for you and take a little stress off, I'm fully in support of lowering that number.
And Darla, from your experience, 2,000, if everything goes right with this, we would be able to cover that with one event, the way we have it set up, the price point and how we're moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, when I was there, we used to, people rented the hall for all kinds of things, like besides the things that we were doing and having, bringing revenue in that way. I mean, we had weddings in the hall, we had parties in the hall, people rented it for, reception after a funeral. Yeah, I mean, all kinds, birthday parties, all kinds of things like that. We don't have that opportunity right now, and we don't know if we're gonna have that opportunity. So again, like I said, if that's gonna take some stress off from you and make it more reasonable and attainable, I think that makes sense here.
You would think maybe by December of next year, you'll be able to have Santa back, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, breakfast with Santa, or, we're just something we're gonna do. I mean, Daddy's Honor Dance. We can't really have Daddy's Honor Dance.
Yeah.
It doesn't just have.
People just aren't comfortable in big crowds inside yet.
Right.
We just need to make sure Santa's boosted too.
Santa's boosted.
I mean, no,
I mean-
not that Santa.
I
can't make a joke about that because of who Santa is. Darn.
Santa believes in vaccines.
I wasn't implying that.
I know.
So what do folks think about the possible use of some of the ARPA money to enhance some of the revenues to make up for what was lost? Be a one-time thing.
I think it's something that once the committee's set up, it's something that we would present. And I think whether the select board presents it to the committee or is asked to have it added to the list, or if the rec department themselves present what they would like to see from that, perhaps.
I'm not sure the timing would work out if we need to finalize this budget next week.
Right.
Is there a
I
possibility?
think it's a great idea.
It is definitely rational because it's clear that the department lost revenue.
Yeah, and I mean, we have we've written it up for just our own reasoning. We have a report. So if it's the rec department going to the committee, I'm all like, we're ready to go.
Or can we say to the committee, this money is this amount of dollars is already committed. You have this amount of money to make your plan with.
That is definitely an option. Because it's
My-
all
my-
ultimately the select board's decision.
True. And while I support that, my concern with that would be, whether it be the rec department or any other department, is that we've asked to set up a committee to sort of deal with these funds. And before they've even been interviewed and had their first organizational meeting, we've already earmarked some of those funds. And then what's to say that other departments couldn't come and request that, knowing that we have done this for the recreation department? That would be my concern. And it's not that I don't support that, I do, but it's just the visuals of that. And I know we have a time crunch. It's just something that we haven't discussed previously. This is the first time it's being brought up, and we have a week left to finalize.
Right.
Well, the shortfalls last year and this year don't affect next year's budget.
Right.
So if we're looking at, I mean, all that would do would reimburse the town for the money that we lost. And I don't know, we've already paid the bills. The taxpayers have picked up the slack in order to run the programs wherever it was.
Mhm.
So all we would be
It
doing
is awkward.
all we would be doing is reimbursing ourselves for something we've already paid for.
It's true. It's not like a business that's gonna close their door because they don't have that revenue.
And
Yeah,
is
in
it-
a way, though, when you look at the proposed budget, we're already cutting things back because we're anticipating still having to adapt or recover from the unknowns associated with the strength of the programs.
So
It
let
is
me ask
reaching
this.
over.
Let me ask this question. If we take ARPA funds for 2020 and 2021 to make those numbers whole, that money just ends up in the undesignated fund balance because we've already paid those bills, correct?
Correct. And what I'm suggesting, and I'm just thinking about this fairly off the cuff. I haven't put a lot of thought into it because seeing these numbers just recently and how vivid the shortfall is, even just if we bring it back up to what this budget was and over to here for this year, just to kind of help it recover a little bit.
But that would be a separate line because we're trying to make the numbers we've got there realistic.
Right.
We just have to be careful where we inject money into the system because when the money's gone,
Right.
we still have to, we're not gonna cut the service. So we're still gonna have to have those funds from somewhere.
No, yeah.
And
Let me
I
ask this-
totally expect that, the rate they're going, they're gonna grow their revenue.
So let me ask this, Val, and if that, like, in 2020, they were, their expenses outweighed their income, I assume. So where does that money come from? I mean,
To make-
usually
to
you have a
Make that
budget.
up.
I was gonna say, who makes that up? Where is it made up from?
What I didn't quite catch your question.
Well, if their income is less than their expenses, they're running in the red.
Yeah.
Where's the money come from to make up what they're running in the red for?
Elsewhere in the budget, the undesignated fund or just the bottom line. As long
It
as
all comes out of the general fund, and then if the general fund is short, it comes out of the undesignated fund balance from the rainy day fund from the previous year, that 5% we hold.
Right. So, I mean, what you're saying is true, Peter. We did already pay for it, but you could then put it back. It would, like you said, it would go back in the undesignated fund balance to replace what we had already had to take out.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something.
Joel, your wheels are turning over there.
Oh, I'm trying to get back to Peter's question about, we paid all of our bills and everything was paid. It's really a loss on paper.
Yes.
So to pay it back and because if the rec department is $20,000 in the red and the highway is 40,000 in the good, we get all done. We're 20,000 to the good in the town because we set a tax rate based on our budget in August and it paid all of our bills. And sometimes we have a rainy day fund, sometimes I haven't been on the board where we've overspent, and over a whole town-wide budget.
Right.
So I'm a little leery. I hear what Ian is saying about you're almost cutting the legs off a committee that we haven't started yet you're gonna have a 1.2 to give us some recommendations on by the way, we're gonna take about 40,000, 50,000 of it right out Monday. I mean, I honestly, that brings up a whole different question we have to come up with a list of us 5 or 6 of us with ballot of our own.
For it to be weighed against everything else,
Right.
yes.
So.
But that's not gonna happen
In the next few weeks,
prior
by
to
the end of
budget.
January. No,
I mean, if you wanna put the numbers back up where they were. So that the revenues don't drop. I'm more comfortable with that than I am saying that we're gonna. Because the money, even if we take back money, it would have to be for this budget session. In order to go against this budget.
If we're trying to make this a realistic budget for what they can do, and then looking at it when we come to this point next year, it's gonna be hard. We're gonna be in the same position, trying to figure out what was do you understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So are we just putting off an issue for a year?
but
Well,
what I asked about, oops, go ahead.
if Meredith goes over this year, like we put the hall events down to 2,000. If things wind up fine and she is able to rent it or do events there and it goes over 2,000, then we adjust the budget next year.
Right, exactly. That's my thought too. I mean,
And that's where we figure we're at.
Right.
right. Is what we got.
And that's why I questioned the swimming and the hall rental or the events, because you try to put it realistically, so. Because at the end, you gotta raise taxes to cover the rest of what you didn't get in revenue to support all the programs. So we could say, sure, we're gonna get program registration fee instead of 50,000, we're gonna make it 150. And say, oh, by the way, we're actually got $10,000 more in revenue than the whole department costs. Well, and realistically, we know we're lying to ourselves because we're not gonna be able to do that. And that's why I think keeping it at 2,000 or the events and the 12,000 for the swimming, as Meredith has said, that's a realistic number, and the rest will have to be raised by taxes.
Are we tying your hands in any way by not having 105,000 in that line? I mean, if your programs are over that, it's gonna, the balance of whatever we have in the end is over that, it's gonna be raised by taxes. $6,000 is what, a quarter of a cent?
I think tying our hands, Peter, is if we took our budget, and I don't know what it is right now, I don't see the bottom line, and said, we're gonna cut it in half. That's cutting her.
Yeah,
That's
Right.
as long as we don't change anything, the only thing it's gonna do is change
How much
what we have to raise by taxes.
Right.
And if that, if that $6,000 is what is the demise of the rec department, then I think that we're a little short-sighted. I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm not wording it right, but I don't see the taxpayers having to raise $6,000 more to keep the rec department afloat as a deal breaker. There's a lot of other places where we spend a lot more money.
Yeah.
But
I
it also makes us
think-
think about those ARPA funds and the idea of reimbursement, how it's harder for it to work with the town because of the prior budget and, you know, the way that we budget. It's difficult to sort of put that money in there for this to be useful because it just becomes undesignated at the end.
Right.
And it creates more problems for us.
Down the
Right.
road. Yeah. Great.
But I agree, Peter. I think that it's a small amount of money to worry about in the scope of things. And so I would be more comfortable having that out, and bumping numbers if we need to.
I think if Meredith is comfortable with these numbers here, that's what we can raise, that we stick there. And if she goes over, then it's great. We end up,
Yeah.
we do end up with money in the undesignated fund balance because of it, but we can adjust next year
Right.
as things hopefully get closer to normal.
Right. And it takes a little pressure off that department having to, you know, scramble to try to find funds to meet a budget in an environment we have no control over.
Yeah, you show people those numbers from the
Yeah.
actuals from 19 and 20,
Right.
and
It was
you
a
know,
growth, yeah, a period of growth for sure.
It was great.
but then the following year, are we gonna get there? You know, last year
Right.
is not last year, 20, the actuals, 2020 and 2021, we're at about 50%, so.
And there, you were able to apply for some funding
Yeah.
for loss of revenue, correct?
Yeah, so there was a funding through the government for $8,000.
Not a lot, but into something,
It's
yeah,
something.
Yeah.
Rather than nothing.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I believe Taylor was able to get a couple more grants for food and things where she didn't have to use her line of food. It was already there given to us.
great,
I'd just rather keep the revenue, what we actually think we're gonna get.
Yeah.
And not inflate it, just to lower our tax rate, just
Agree.
our taxes to support that department.
I
You
mean,
know, and
that's-
hopefully, you know, go on.
Go ahead, Ian.
I was gonna say, and hopefully, you know, looking at that line 14, as I mentioned before, the hall rentals, seeing it in 2020, 21 was $613. And this year it was over $3,000 and actually more, you know, that bodes well for next year, I think.
Comfortable with that, Meredith?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
thank you.
As you all know, we're pretty much, with line 22 through 29. It all depends on certain factors. And I'm curious, this is the updated, I did not the updated FICA health insurance. I didn't have those numbers. Like the FICA.
Yep.
The workers' comp and all that.
So you're asking Val if those are the
Yeah,
correct
sorry, thank
numbers.
you.
Yeah, those are correct. Those are updated.
Thank you. So with the mileage, we haven't spent much, so we brought it down even more. So you'll see that we dropped it to 150. With the training, we're keeping the training at that amount. There's a lot of potential for different training. It just, I don't want to cut from that because that's something that gives us personal growth.
I think that's what I'm seeing. Every business and every place I work with is training like crazy right now because the opportunity is there.
Yes. Supplies. So, we've been going pretty good with supplies. I don't really want to touch that. We brought down.
Meredith,
Yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead. No,
Just, why the huge increase 2021?
with the supplies.
Yeah, was that COVID related? All the
Yeah,
hand
we
wipes?
purchased a lot of stuff was covered and help from the government, but we did also purchase a lot of things, hand washing station, paper towels,
Okay.
all that kind of stuff, mats. All right, great question, thank you. The equipment line, you know, we're moving ahead, bringing in new programs, like pickleball and disc golf. So some of that equipment, I do have a grant for, but some of it I have to cover through that amount. Technology and computers. So pretty much that should be our program, our platform that we use to take in money and do the registration and all that. I believe that our yearly subscription to that is like 3,000, maybe $3,100. Well worth it because it allows us to do a lot of things. Like today, I had to cancel dance because of the weather, and I was able to send out an email in a second. So we didn't touch that.
Didn't that something actually kind of got into your lap right after Darla? Darla, when you start that, there was a statewide program that they wanted us.
Oh, not so much a
consider?
statewide. We had a platform in place that wasn't
Not really,
adequate for
remember.
what, it wasn't the right fit for us. It was what was available at the time. They were a Vermont company, so we liked doing business with them. These guys were sort of just getting started, but when I left, I had kind of put in motion that we were gonna take on this other program. So, and from what I understand, it was the right move to
It
make.
is the absolutely right move. If you notice, only a few recreation departments don't do it.
Yeah,
And when you go to their platform, it's a PDF.
Yeah.
It's dragging.
it's very intuitive. I mean, this program is
The
very
program.
intuitive.
Yeah, and I appreciate that work that you did. I mean,
No problem. I wish I'd done it years before.
I saw the next track, it was horrible.
Red track was a pain.
So postage, you know, I'm always worried, there's always like I might send out thank you cards, you know, so I'd like to keep it at 100. The telephones I don't really have much to do with. The Holly Hall custodian, so I pretty much, in the winter time, I only hire out for the Holly Hall, Town Hall to be cleaned. There's no real reason for the summer, because I can come over. I've done it this last year, I cleaned it. But pretty much the winter, it just gets beat. So it is nice to be able to pay somebody to come in and really take the time to take the cleaning. As you can see in the notes, it's hired from December to April. I did let them know that, you know, we have.
Just a question for the swimming, we took some off the revenue. Do you think you should take some off the actual expense there or no?
Did I skip swimming? Oh, wait.
No, but it's down a little bit.
Down there swimming,
Yeah, yes. So definitely want to, you know, I'm because we're only doing level 1 through 3, there's no reason to hire as many instructors that we had the last time.
so that's the hiring part of it.
That's the
That's the
money,
hiring.
that's how I'm paying those folks.
Okay.
So, and last year it was, the last time that we ran the program, I want to say we charged, it was like 13,000. I just want to go back to the printing, we're going paperless, so you see that $1,200, which is nice.
Yeah.
All right, so the swimming, I don't see us paying out $15,000.
Even though you have to run multiple sessions.
Yeah, so my thought is, because we're only doing level 1 through 3, then there's really, I only need 4 instructors.
Okay.
And only, so that's 5 people.
That makes
When
sense.
we took over the program, we took over the people too. And there was 8 people on the list. And, you know, we'd send some home,
Mhm.
but a lot of times it was like 10 to 11, not a lot of kids. You can't just send somebody home because at 11 o'clock, a whole new group comes in.
Right.
So I don't see us having that many instructors. So changing that, I mean,
But we're probably gonna be paying more.
you are correct. You know, a lead is like $20. But if you're a first year swim instructor, it's $13. Until
Change
Yeah,
that figure.
because I've been, and I apologize, working with Devin and trying to get numbers and doing all that, that part is kind of, it's a tough call. I don't want to.
You don't have the numbers yet, is what you're saying?
Yeah, because I just talked to Devin, so we're trying to figure out how many kids we can put at for 15, and then having 5 instructors.
So can we just make a note, and that if, we'll leave it at 15 and make a note that if Meredith is comfortable with lowering that, we'll lower it.
And I'll find, I just need to do a couple other.
Because there's no sense in getting stuck on it right now. If she doesn't know the answer, we can't, we.
Right.
Great, thank you. Okay, so programs, this is what we send out, paid instructors with it, not from instructors, but like dance, all that kind of stuff. So obviously what you see here is the reason why it's changed so much in numbers is because we do in-house programming. All our summer programs is between Taylor, Alex, and myself that run it. We do have I do hire another professional mountain bike coach to help out with that. But 25, so from last year it was 32, I knocked it down to 25. Obviously, you can see below there that I'm screaming for a vehicle for transportation. We did what you asked us to do last year. We rented, we spent $3,000. Let's see here, $3,150 in renting the Vector bus. So, that worked. It got us to certain places. They can't drive certain places to, but when we went, like mountain bikes, we went to Cochrane, we went to Middlebury. The hub went to the Longshire. Thank you.
Norwich.
So what's happened is because we did that, we've now added this program where we're like, yeah, we're gonna go places. So I removed $5,000 and put it in a line of the vehicle transportation. I wrote maintenance and transportation rental. There's a possibility, I put my name on the list for a V-Trans, or like a Vermont, Addison County Transit bus.
Tri-County, yeah.
So they have 2 buses. One is already planned and the other one is, I have my name on there. They can't tell me until April. If we can't, so with that, that's why I have 5,000, because they sell them for 10, but to $500 to $1,000. They take them right off the lot. I talked to Eric, talk about what kind of maintenance the town garage can do. It's a very basic, greasing and oil change. I'm not sure if they can do tire change, but it's like $1,500 for tires to put on. So that 5,000 would, for the first year, would be to purchase the van or the bus. It's a 15 passenger with the bike rack, just like what we see around here. And then obviously we want to make sure it's safe, and it will be safe. It's coming off the line. But everything is mechanically good for us to drive it around. So that's the 5,000. If somehow we miss it, we don't get the bus, that 5,000 will cover the rental cost for our program.
What I would like to see you do is, let's say they call you in April and say, we've got one here.
Yeah.
You take it to a reputable garage, whether it be over here or the one up on Devonall Lane or County Tire, one of them, and say, we have a chance to get this bus. Can you put it up in the air? Tell us if there's any hidden things that we need to know about.
Do we have an account with any of the garages?
We take our fire trucks to both, two of those places I just mentioned. We take our police car to Tad, so I just would like to, you know, an hour or two of a mechanic, and a
Yeah.
couple $100 maybe at the tops, and say, it's got a cracked frame, or it's got this, or it's got that, or the front end is going like this, the ball joints, or something.
Yeah.
I'd like, and say, it's gonna cost you more than what you're gonna.
I guarantee, yeah, I like that because I don't.
Because there's one of those Tri-Valley ones that says that it's the old greener type, it's sitting down to earth waste in the parking lot, so it's gonna get crushed, so. If how, and there's one over the Legion that the Legion got, and the transmission doesn't shift into high gear, and this and that, and turn that one, it's pretty. So I just wanna make sure you don't get a
A lemon?
A lemon, yeah.
And
bucket of bolts.
with this 5,000, if, you know, like, if there's a couple $100 I can pull from this line, get it checked out, and then we can say no. And then we're
rent
using
it,
that line
yeah.
to rent. And it'll just start from here on out, show the need and what we're doing with the whole transportation. If it's rent or if we actually get to get a bus.
And have you got money in there for a driver, or have one of you got your,
Yeah, so we all have clean driving records. We all took that beginner start for the bus program, but that's for like a big bus.
Or you can get a class type 2, that's
Yeah,
for 15 passenger or less.
and so
That's a
two
small
of us would be getting that.
Yeah.
And that, we've already gone one step, so we just need to, we're a quarter of the way there.
So is there a special endorsement needed to
Yeah.
drive that bus?
passenger endorsement?
Yeah,
There is, okay.
If it's got air brakes, you gotta have air compression too, so.
yeah, so we started the
I
ball
think
rolling.
those have them.
It's great. I think your numbers last year for those programs that you traveled, those were some of your bigger
Oh, yeah.
bigger
so-
sellers, so that's,
Yeah,
it showed that there's interest in, I mean, we talked about a bus back when I was sitting in that seat, so.
Not sitting in the bus seat, but sitting.
Not, yeah, sitting in her seat, sitting in her seat, yeah.
so if you guys are fine with that, that would be fantastic. Going to events, what we're spending on, you know, we started doing a little bit like, a bunch of events outside at the skate park, just music series on Sundays. You know, we're still doing our music in our movies in the park, so I would like to leave that alone in the events line. That's all right. Because once the spring happens, we are ready to go outside and just get things done. The landfill fees, I have no idea what, you know, the process on that one is. And then the annual fees are like being part of Vermont Parks and Rec.
Can we go back to the landfill fees?
I believe.
So is that for the trash disposal from the hub? Because that would be down below.
And the parks.
Oh, and the parks.
Okay,
Yeah, hub and parks.
thank you.
And was it
That
just
seems
not
very
coded that way in prior years?
reasonable.
Because there's nothing shown for the prior years as expenses or budget.
They had prior years with expenses. Everybody did. It's divided 4 different ways. Meredith has the park and Taylor has the hub.
And it's not getting coded to another line?
No,
must
we have 4
be.
different places that it goes to. I can't remember all 4 places.
Probably Main Street one, Main Street one.
Yeah,
Karen?
that's part of the parks.
Okay.
I think highway might pay the one on Saturday morning. I don't remember. I'd have to look at the sheet.
Can
You'll have
we,
to look
can
back.
we rename that line so it's a little bit more descriptive? Landfill, I just think of the town landfill, which maybe is where it came from, perhaps.
Yeah,
Trash disposal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rubbish and recycling.
yeah.
And just to let you know, there is trash disposal in the youth center expense line on number 69.
so wait, there's two trash?
There's a trash line on 69 for the youth center.
As an expense.
Oh, there it is. I see. Okay,
yeah, because the hub gets charged separate because they have their own facility over there.
Okay.
Pickup. Yeah.
So let's just call it, since the hub one is called trash disposal, can we just call line 45 trash disposal so it matches?
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think, right.
How come there's no actual though?
Right.
Right.
I don't know.
Other,
We'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
where is the actual
$63.
$368?
Yeah.
Where is that? Yeah, we need to find out where that garbage is or where it's coming from, because there's nothing in any of the other lines until right there.
Right.
Is that this building for upstairs?
Right, was it being coded differently? Prior?
I mean, it just seems odd that there's nothing there, and 1 year we get an actual, so now we have a line for it.
Right.
That's what I'm guessing happened.
1 year they put it to here, 1 year they put it to the general.
I don't
Well,
remember.
we'll
there
look
being
into
one.
that before the next meeting.
Yeah, because if it's for this building, I mean, I can't imagine they generate much trash upstairs. Well,
Well, not that there's not that many events happening. When you have
Yeah.
events,
It does pile up.
it piles up. And when we were doing the lunches, it would pile up sometimes too.
All right, so we'll take a look into the line 45.
six, five, yeah.
Just in Meredith, I know that some of the rec department budget figures, actuals didn't jive, or the NEMRIC figures, like in the budget status reports, didn't jive with your numbers. Has there been progress on getting those closer together?
I can actually speak to that. Meredith and I have been working, along with Peter, have been working on consolidating and just making sure both sides of the equation equal out. I can explain more about that process if we're doing department head roundtable, because it's a process I'm trying to input a little bit into just how we're running things in the treasury office. So Meredith, for example, will be meeting with me once a month to go over the logistics and financials to make sure that A equals A and B equals B, and just make sure that what she's seeing is what I'm seeing.
Thank you. So that the actuals that we see in this column for 2022 are, how confident are we that those are actuals, or are things still kind of off a bit?
When I run my numbers on my rec, I'm confident with my numbers.
And so these are off of your rec numbers?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to the youth center skate park, is that cool?
Yep.
All right, so let's move on down to, so when I talked to Taylor about this, she pretty much is keeping everything in line. She did do a change in the food. You'll see it's been bumped up to 1,500. There's a reason, because the hub is a happening place and the kids are eating, which is great. So she's added a 500 to that. And you can see in her notes also with, you know, the inflation and the pricing of the food, we all feel it when we go to Shaw's.
Hey, Meredith, I thought the food, you guys had a grant for that.
She does. And she has.
So this is above and beyond the grant?
This is for next year,
This is
right?
for next year. So
Yeah, so the
there-
grant, they'll use the grant money up this year. And this fiscal year, and going forward, they won't have that grant necessarily.
Right, and because the grant was definitely, COVID, support. So she's just being cautious and careful. But yeah, we have been spending, a lot of money on the food. And I mean, they've been making some great food out of there, so.
Oh, perfect. Oh, sorry, Matt.
Go ahead, Joel.
Perfect example, under food for 2021, she budgeted 1,000, she only spent 419, probably the rest of it was grant.
Yeah.
Buying the food.
That is correct.
Buy it with a grant first and pay for the rest later with it.
Yeah, use that grant money up.
We should make more sure we note that somewhere, because if I look at those lines, I'll have no idea and say, well, why'd you jump that much if you've only spent $400?
Good point.
Yeah, but we don't know year to year whether we're gonna get a grant or
Right.
not. So
Right, so you have to budget for it.
we have to budget for the food we need
Right.
and hope we get grants and then it ends up in the end as a fund balance.
Right.
Yeah, because you'll see. like,
Or it goes to another line that was overspent.
I mean,
No, I
when you
guess
see-
my question is if I'm looking back at the budget and we're budgeting for upcoming years, and I say, oh, we only spent 500 or we only spent 1,100, why are we now increasing it? If we put in there were grant funds, at least we know that that's not a realistic number.
That in the notes there, right? Michelle?
Correct.
With the electricity, telephone, and that is all set. And then the programs and workshop. So a lot of stuff came through this year as well, or last year with some grants that Taylor was able to get. Again, same scenario as the food. We don't know if we'll get some of those grants. I believe when she had one from United Way, in the past, it was set at a certain amount, and then this last time, because we needed to distribute a lot more money to different areas, it wasn't like the maximum amount that she had received in the past. So that's another example of, the grants and it not being able to rely on them completely for the next fiscal year.
Yeah, that's what it, so we should have, even if it's offset by grants, we should have actual numbers in those lines.
Okay.
So whatever grant money came in should be the actual expense of that line. And then when that line is bigger than what we, or is either equal or bigger to what we allocate for it or what we propose for it, then we know we're where we need to be.
Right.
So if we don't get a grant, say this year we don't get the grant, it's $1,500, that will be that should still be the actual number. So that we know, for budgeting purposes, we know what that number has to be.
Okay, so moving forward, and also catching up is, we'll go through the grants.
Are you
And
talking
pull the
about the food
numbers.
one, Peter?
Anyone where they get grants, the actual money spent should be in that line.
Great. So
But Peter,
the
then
next
what do
year-
you do with where, don't you have to have the income shown somewhere, like grant fund income, so that it doesn't offset? It doesn't screw up the income versus the expenses.
Right. And Anthony can speak more to this also, that the way the grants are handled is they're processed under independent codes. So they don't actually hit the general fund. So there's a separate area of the budget that's not seen in the general fund.
So perhaps it's budgeting that number with a note that says, like we said above, X amount of dollars supplied
Well,
by this grant.
Says
Or-
grants help offset.
Right.
Yeah. Val, are you saying then, like, the one I can understand is food? So if it paid for, Covers bill comes in for the month for pizza at the hub, and we're gonna pay for it with a grant, we don't put down 12-6, 27-21.10, we put a grant number down, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so,
Because grant expenses and revenues need to be tracked separately, independently.
So is there any way that we can know what those numbers
Or a
are, so that, because if that money doesn't come,
They're stuck.
yeah, we're stuck. We either overspend or, you know, they overspend the line or we don't have a line for it. Because realistically, we should be budgeting for those lines, we should be budgeting about half what we are. Based on the actuals.
Because of the grant.
Yeah, because of the grant. I'm not saying we should be budgeting, but if you look at the numbers, if you're outside looking in at the numbers and they're consistently half of what you're budgeting. I mean, as long as we can answer the question, I guess it's okay, but it's not an actual number.
Or do we put in the number that's actually spent with a note that says plus X amount of dollars from this grant? So then we don't have to put in another line or make a connection between a grant account and that line that equals it out. But you've got the information there. So we know going forward, like, so say we spent $100 on food and 50 of it came from the grant, we'd still put in the $100, we'd have a notice that said plus 50, you know, that said plus whatever to balance it. So does that make sense?
It does in theory, but I don't think Anthony can do that with the NEMRIC system because he's got all the account numbers for every line item.
Right, but what I'm saying is if we put in the number that they actually spent and then just made a note for ourselves to know for budgeting purposes going forward, for the following year, we would know to, you know, if we don't have that grant, then we would budget the $100 instead of the 50.
I think that'd be an auditor's question where you can budget for something. And take it out of an expense without even.
We're budgeting for it now. We're
Budgeting for it, but not spending it.
we're budgeting for it now and we're only spending half of it. That's my, we're spending it all because we're getting grant money. If we didn't get the grant, we wouldn't have the money to spend.
I think under notes, you just put this line was supported with help from a grant.
Yeah.
And if it's 5 lines down through there, if it's, you know, food and supplies and a computer, and said, boy, you didn't need all that computer. The note says this was supplied partially by a grant.
And what is your thought on the bottom part in the tabs, that there would be a tab and just maybe a grant page?
Mhm.
So go back and reference that.
Yeah.
And that could correspond to whatever the code is, you know, United Way
Mhm.
food, and it would support the line item of, you know, 62. And that way we could reference it and it should be an easier.
Well, yeah, and I think the taxpayers saw that, and then further down on the town meeting warning, there's an article to support the United Way, let's say. They'd say, well, they
Yeah.
help support us out.
Yeah.
Well, whoever it's supporting.
So in general, do we need a reference to grants that we are using?
You want to say something, Anthony? I don't see you, but you're lighting up.
Yeah, I am here. What I find helpful with this is, I mean, notes really support and flush out a lot of the journal entries one can make. The way that I think about grants when budgeting and stuff like that is, yes, we can apply for them and stuff like that. Will we always get them? Well, that's really dependent upon what the decision is. But I think of it the same way as trying to calculate revenues. Like, do you want to go over or do you want to go under? So if you're trying to budget for food, realizing, okay, well, we have $1,500, but we've only used about 400 of it. Well, the other like budgeted amount, like let's say we got a grant for food for $1,000. Well, we've used that $1,000. So we've actually hit 1,500, but because of that grant, it only shows up as us using about $400 worth of the actual line item, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to, any ideas on how we can show that? Because we're reading down through here now, and the actuals are about 50% of what we budgeted, which means they're getting 50% of that. They're spending the money, but they're getting 50% of it from grants, but it doesn't show up here. Is there any way to make that happen?
I'm
So-
pretty sure we can find a way to make that a lot more transparent. Just moving forward as far as like documentation goes.
Yeah, even if we can put a footnote somewhere that says, received $1,000 United Way grant for assistance with the food somewhere. I mean, I know they get a bunch of grants, they apply for a bunch of grants, so somewhere we gotta show that.
In order to make so these numbers make sense they make sense to me now. But if you ship me the town report and I looked at this, how come they're always budgeting 50% more than what they need? If they ask the question, we can answer it. But sometimes they don't ask the question, all they do is grumble about it. And that grumbling gets passed around until it finally gets to a person who knows the answer. But the answer never gets back to the person who originally asked the question. If that makes any sense.
I think what might help is, the general public will see this on the town report is, and I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure we've added it in, and Sharon might be able to verify this, but we did do a listing of grants.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's
Yeah.
not the best way of showing it, but
They've got to look in two different places, but the information is there. Okay. We beat that one to death.
we did.
Good job, Mayor.
So moving forward, there's nothing in the special events. Like I said, a lot of the music series that we've been doing is grant funded. So we'll have to tap on that. And then going to all the other parts of, like the trash disposal we talked about. The
Meredith?
Yeah.
Question, on the trash fees, your town parks is a different line item than where you were showing trash on your rec department, correct?
Yes.
Because her rec department does not get charged trash fees. It goes to the town parks. The youth center gets it. The general one for Holly Hall gets it, and the garage gets charged. Rec itself does not get charged because it's part of the Holly Hall. But the town park fees goes into her other budget, so there should be costs there.
Yeah, there is, and it's off by about that $368 from last year.
That makes sense.
There you go.
Because the year before was 934,
Yeah.
and then last year it's 305. So if you add that other 3 to it, it puts the other 4 to it, it puts it up to around $800, $700. So it's more accurate.
But remember, if you're in the youth center, they get their own charge. So they do get charged. So they need to have a line, but the rec department does not because it goes to town parks.
Okay, so you can take that one out.
Okay, so.
So Sharon, you're saying we can remove the line that says trash in the rec for 368 or whatever it is. You just won't buy
Yeah,
it.
I think she went past it. Yeah, right
Line-
there.
Line
Because she
45.
doesn't get a charge through her rec department budget. It goes through her parks budget.
Well, she's been charged.
Yeah, somebody weaseled $368 out of
I
it.
don't know why it's not supposed to go there, but
So let's delete that line entirely then. Because since it has no recording in it, doesn't need to be there at all.
I was gonna say, the hub
I don't know
already
why
has a
there's
line, doesn't it?
368 because I don't even have that number on my list. So if that was charged, it's a separate bill from the normal one we get every month.
Oh, you're right. That is an actual. I thought that was a budgeted item, but there's
Yeah, it's
there's
not one that
one
I coded.
charge.
money we're missing from the other.
And this
line.
trash disposal, instead of saying move to hub, it should say move to parks. Not hub, because hub has its own.
Maintenance.
But what Peter was saying, that if we move this 368 down here, then it,
It's the parks, that is parks.
No, that's youth center.
Yeah,
Parks is a
Parks
different
Parks
number.
is separate. Parks isn't in this budget.
Parks is right
It's in-
there.
It's,
No. How come I'm seeing
No, because,
arts, parks and recreation? I'm seeing the total header.
So, yeah, where's
Sorry.
the town park and the main street?
right,
Not in
Yeah.
there.
not, it's not on there, it's totally separate, because parks
In a
isn't
different
actually under
place.
That park is it? That's under the general?
it's under parks. Parks has its own budget, or always did.
Yeah, well, see, it says, the reason I'm getting confused is I'm reading that, the header,
Parks.
arts, parks and recreation.
Which I lobbied to have changed for 17 years.
Let's make it 18.
Clearly, I was
So-
unsuccessful.
Except we are really getting into the parks, but we're really trying.
Right, but the parks budget is separate.
Yeah.
So, but again, that's a discussion to have. Should we fold it all together?
all right, let's keep moving.
Yep. Okay, so, the miscellaneous. That's always good to have in there. Sorry, wait, a minute, hold on. The maintenance. Just never know. Maintenance could be something horrible. Tree falls down, I don't know. Rather, keep that as is. So we would be going to the pottery studio. Like I said, Motlock has been crushing it. I did put a little note in there, asking for a raise for her. She gets 106.6 a month. So this would be a $160 raise.
Meredith, is that what she's asking for? Or that's what you're asking for her?
I'm asking for her,
Okay.
So she gets $106.9. You're asking to
it's
move it to
$1,066 a month for her stipend.
$1,066. You're asking to move it to $1,160.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, she's added a few classes, she's really stepped it up. Since we're, like, there's 2 programs that the rec department has held through the whole pandemic, and that's dance and that's the play studio.
And she hasn't had an increase for several years, I don't think.
It's been
Doesn't
inching
look
up
it.
there.
Yeah.
So the we want to keep it at that because that's about the amount for the tools and the clay. It's pretty expensive. The clay is about $700 for a pallet. The kiln, the heat, it's hard for me to have any control over that. Motlock's very good about keeping the kiln at a certain time of use. She packs them all in and she burns it.
Yeah.
So she doesn't for 2 reasons. She doesn't want to be down there all the time. And she doesn't want to waste the energy.
Don't know, fire one for just one piece on you.
Right, she's very, she's
Good.
great about communicating to everybody, that, if it's a small class, they have to wait.
Yeah.
The rent, we're still there, Kelly Wallace called me the other day, there's a few people interested in the building, sending out in the world that they love pottery and then they'll let us stay. But I don't think they've sold the building yet, and that's a whole different topic. And then the telephone. Any questions about pottery studio? So that's the rec department budget. Thank you for sharing the screen.
And we'll have an opportunity to circle back on anything else next week. I think this comes up.
Yeah, I've created a little list that I want to follow up on with a few things like the trash, and I might have coded it wrong or what have you. And also exploring the idea about the grants and getting that so it's understandable to somebody looking at the page.
Perfect. Thank you, Meredith.
Thank you guys for taking the time.
Thanks, man.
All right. Fire department, Brett, you're up.
You hear me?
There you are. Yep.
Yeah, you're gonna have to hang on a second while I get my stuff together here. Trying to, this went on.
Did we put you to sleep?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, that's Meredith's fault. You should have a sleeping pod.
Okay, how about now? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me see if I can get my camera to work here.
Brett, do you want to share your screen or do you want me to?
Well, if you're just putting up the budget, then I'd ask you to share it.
Okay. Okay, let's see how this is going to go.
Thank you. So I think it was 3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to meet with you folks. And there didn't seem to be many questions regarding the overall budget. However, we did have the conversation about firefighter compensation, the labor line there, that first line that Valerie has highlighted. And I came to you 3 weeks ago with an idea as I'm working towards assisting the town with coming into compliance with the Fair Standards Labor Act, regarding how we are compensated, just to make sure, however it is we are compensated, we're following the law. And to my surprise, that discussion led to a few questions from the board, asking, well, how would the general membership feel about, potentially a decrease in wages? What are other fire departments doing with their firefighters? How are they compensated? So I reached out a couple of my neighboring chief officers just to ask those questions. So the number you see in front of you tonight, hopefully you've all had an opportunity to read that one pager I put together, that compensation proposal. Did everybody get a chance to look at that?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So, well, since you've had a chance to look at it, I guess at this time I'm going to put it back to you folks and let you folks ask your questions of me.
So Brett, I just want to confirm on that one paragraph, you have, I understand the calls for service, like I understand the training hours, the equipment apparatus inspections, those are the once a month thing that you do at your monthly meetings. The facility duties, that's the stuff that you guys do once a month. The one crew does it once a month and then the next crew does it the next month. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's 4 companies and so 3 months in a row, you've got equipment apparatus inspections, and then your 4th month, your off month, if you will, you don't have inspections, but you're responsible for the facility, keeping it clean, shoveling snow, that kind of stuff. So I wanted to separate it out instead of just lumping it together as inspections, just to show the difference of what they are doing.
Yeah, okay.
That's what those 3 hours are. And again, I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago, and just to reiterate it again, the hours, these 30 hours, what that incorporates is essentially your mandatory requirements for being a firefighter. And I don't necessarily mean just for the town of Bristol. The Vermont Fire Academy, the Vermont Fire Service Training Council, who we have our pro board certifications through, they require X amount of hours of training annually in specific topics. And then of course, at the Bristol Fire Department, you have your assigned function or functions, whether it be as a firefighter, a apparatus driver operator, or what we call an exterior firefighter. So there's additional trainings that go along with those types of duties, those functions in the department. So that's where we came up with the 30 hours per firefighter.
Okay.
Because so the Vermont Fire Service Training Council, they require 24 hours of continuing education annually. Every year the academy sends you this packet of paperwork. I have to validate, sign off, and every firefighter holds a pro board certification. And in the case of the Bristol Fire Department, that's about 30 of our 34 members.
Okay.
And that's where this compensation figure comes from. That's in the budget spreadsheet.
That's not
Can you put the budget back
terrible
up?
for,
Yep.
that's not terrible for 35 employees. If you had one full-time person, it'd cost you more than that.
Yeah, it's, anytime you ask for an increase, it's difficult. I'm thankful a couple of you asked the question a few weeks ago, because I think any responsible department head would come forward with, you're trying to do what's in the best interest of the town. And, I think level funding is kind of unrealistic, but you try to be close. And, but this is one area, I think, by increasing it by this, whatever it is, 16.5, this is for the people, the people who make this place go. These are the persons who are required to do X, Y, and Z, and, are the ones whose lives are regularly interrupted, whether it be their job, their family events, to provide a service to the community, a very valuable service. And because we are recognized as a municipal volunteer type organization under the town's umbrella, which I think is a good thing, this to me only increases and puts more accountability on the fire department as a whole. We have expectations, we have standards to be a Bristol firefighter, because this is a place where you are expected to know how to do your job. I mean, when someone calls 911, they are expecting a person to come and provide them some type of professional service. And in order to do that, you have to have standards, and compensating the firefighters for those minimum standards only emphasizes the importance of the jobs, the service they provide to the community. I really don't see this as a incentive for people to come to training, because you know what, they have to come to training anyway. It's mandatory hours. They're just not getting paid for them today. Would it increase our recruitment? Maybe not. But I think if you ask anybody in that organization today, not one of them would say I do it for the money. Because in my experience, when we recruit a new person, most people don't even know they receive some type of compensation. It's a surprise to them. So I think it's a nice benefit. The hourly compensation certainly emphasizes the importance of their job, and for that long duration type call when you get back, and people have to leave at different times. The person or persons who are sticking around to the very end, helping out with whether it be washing the trucks or filling air cylinder, whatever the job is, they are truly being compensated right to the end of the call. So that's what I wanted to put forward tonight. I'm 100% behind this proposal, but I did come prepared tonight. If the board had concerns about this 3.6% increase in the fire department's budget, I have a list of items here we could go through to knock that number down, that percentage. I could get you what I came up with. I could get you all the way down to 1.5%.
I don't think there's a lot of fat in your budget, Brett. I personally think I know it's a big jump, but I support paying them for this training and the time they're there. So it's a matter of whether the taxpayers are going to agree with it. Which I think they will. I think they'll just give it to you. So
Yeah, I think that the fire department obviously has had tremendous support over the years, and I think that the people should be compensated. And I think, the question I asked last time you presented, Brett, was, are you comfortable presenting? And this was the previous iteration of this. Were you comfortable presenting it? And it seems like you hadn't done that. And looking at sort of the response that you had, it seems like this is a much better way of making this compliant.
Yes, agreed. And I do, it is a concern for me. I'm like to think I'm looking out for the best interest of the town. I don't want anything, negative to come to the town, because someone wanted to be compensated for something that by law, maybe they should have been compensated for. And whatever it is you folks decide to do, I just want to make sure we come into compliance. So this is obviously the preferred model. And I guess the second model would be the one I proposed to you 3 weeks ago, which would be like a tiered approach to compensation, which would be solely for responding to calls for service. Firefighters would not be compensated for their training or their other responsibilities in that model.
Brad, I think you leave it this way, and if there's pushback from the taxpayers, then you can offer that alternate solution, but I would leave it where it is.
Yeah, I'm fine with
Thank you for that support.
And I'm really not in favor of going through and picking on lines that, we're just starting to get a history on, and playing catch up next year is worse than taking a little bit of a bite this year.
Yeah.
Well, Peeker, you'd be happy to know that we're actually, right now, I'm in my fire officer class, we're doing budgets. So, and I learned that one of the first things a department head would do is cut operating expenses. So those are my proposals. We're just through several operating lines, start, making cuts. So, but if you folks don't think that's necessary at this time, that's wonderful. I certainly recommend this going forward, and I would be happy on town meeting day if necessary to speak to this and provide any explanation, justification that if you folks wanted me to do so, if it came to that.
I appreciate you making those alternate plans, but I agree. I don't know that it's necessary at this point, but I think that's a very proactive way to approach this, Brett. Thank you.
I mean, you're saying you can cut $8,000 and not need it back next year. I don't think there's that kind of fat in any of our budgets, really.
As I explained to Valerie today when I spoke to her earlier, I mean, yes, Pika, there is some risk associated with some of those cuts. But again, at the end of the day, for me, this is all about our firefighters, because without them, this place doesn't go. So, and, yes, it costs a lot more money to pay a full-time employee there, but I do think the town gets a really good professional level type service from their fire department at a very reasonable rate. And I think with this increase, I still feel comfortable and very confident about saying that. They're still receiving a very professional level service from a competent bunch of individuals for a very reasonable price.
Now, the 3.6% increase is not that great of an increase.
Yeah,
overall.
It is to me. It is to me.
Well, I know it is, but considering what jumped for the salary line or stipend line, that's, you've done well in the rest of the budget. So.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions regarding the compensation piece?
I don't on the compensation, but Valerie, I asked when he was here 3 weeks ago, go to the bond payment. Did we find out whether we can convert that yet to a long-term mortgage?
Brett and I have been asking questions about the bond, and I don't know if I haven't seen an answer on that.
No, I don't know if Anthony, if you had an opportunity to look into that.
What are you saying?
Do we know what the payment is?
It looks like the payment's 100. Do you know what the percentage of the payment is? And
it's a little over 10 grand a month.
No, I get that, but are we paying 2.5? Are we paying 3?
Two something. It was cheap money.
I mean, and that was 5 years ago figure, and it's cheaper now. I'm just,
So your question is, could it be converted to something that
Right
would
now.
be less interest?
Right.
Yeah. Anthony?
I know the right people to ask when I get to work, but I don't know if you want me to do that.
Well, it's actually going down. It's going down. It's gone down $4,000 since the inception of the loan. Is that just the lack of interest and we're just paying principal plus interest every year?
I don't know the answer to that, and I'd have to switch screens and files to look it up.
No,
Well, I'm looking at AP, and in July 2021, we paid 116,797.99. And then we just paid here in January another $12,906.13. So we're paying one huge one and then a smaller interest payment. So for the whole year, it's 117 plus 13. Whatever that is.
So we're 130, we're down another
Yeah.
6.
Sharon, you don't have, like, you don't get a statement that says, okay, this is a variable rate bond that,
We do get a statement to pay the bill
Okay.
with, but I don't know if
Yeah.
it says the rate on there or not.
okay.
We'd have to look at it.
Look into.
my only last question, Brad, is, and you've always wondered that too, go up to the mowing. I know I see them mowing there about once a week or once every 10 days, and one year it was $1,832, and the following year was 26, almost $2,700, and last year, well, the year we're in was $825. So that was from
That's
July
only a
1st.
partial year for 825, because the rest of it will be in the spring.
Right, May, June, okay,
Makes sense.
all right.
Yeah.
I don't
Don't see anything wrong.
No,
have
Nope.
any.
Yeah,
So-
and we obviously looked at
Remember the-
detail, 3 weeks ago at this. I think the biggest change with this was the compensation piece.
And we expect this number to go down a little bit, right?
Yes, I'm guessing it's gone down every, it's gone down every year.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe we can get a more accurate figure for there, and that would bring him, that would bring him under 3%. And he could feel good about it too. Well, I just think, that's the same number as last year, and if you look at past history, it's coming down.
Mhm.
So if we could
And I know
maybe
there-
get a closer number there, it's gonna, if it's 2,000-3,000, it's gonna bring him, gonna make the bottom line look even better.
Mhm.
Oh,
Good.
Sharon just paid 12 and there's 116, that's 129 or something like that. So
30.
even if you put 130 in there, assuming it's gonna be close to that.
Well, I'd rather not, I would rather not lowball it.
Well, yeah, I know that. I'm saying maybe we can find out a better number.
Right, yeah, we will before the next meeting.
I mean, it can at least be the actual for this past year.
Well, she said she paid the 116.
Yeah, if
And then
that's
another 12.
everything,
Well, then
yeah,
She said another 12, so.
Yeah, that's
130.
129.
Well, it was almost 13. It was 12,906, so almost 13.
13, so 130,
117 and 13 is 130, so
right?
that's a big, that's a significant drop.
yep.
It's $6,000.
Do you want me
Is
to
there,
make the
is it
change now?
just 2 payments? Or is there another interest payment before? They really can't be.
No, it looks like there's 2 payments a year, the really big one and then a smaller interest payment.
Val, I wouldn't change it until we know for sure a better
Okay.
number.
Sounds good.
Knowing that it's gonna be lower is great.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be lower than the 136, so
Right.
that'll help.
Right. Yeah, there was a notation in my my loan file that the interest rate was going to be changing, and so we didn't have a new one for this period of time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think we actually were talking about that like what, a week or 2 ago,
Right.
trying to fully understand the full scope of this payment schedule as well as what kind it was.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't fixed, or you don't believe it's fixed?
We don't know yet.
Okay,
I'm positive it's not.
We didn't
good.
last week anyway.
I thought it was, but. Okay,
Peter, let me clarify, you're asking whether it's a fixed rate or not a fixed rate. Is that what you're asking?
that is correct.
So Val, you don't know that answer, right? Whether it's a fixed interest rate or a variable.
Correct.
I think it's a variable because last year at this time, the interest we paid was almost 18,923. And the year before that, it was 19,666. And the year before that, it must be going down or something. It was 20,431. And this
So you're
year,
paying
the one
on-
we just paid was 12,906.
You're
My
paying
guess
on
is
less
paid on the
principal.
market plus 1 or something like that, something.
Well, the principal is also decreasing, so that contributes.
Yeah, so you're paying on less principal, so
Right.
it's gonna go down.
Right.
It's not like a traditional mortgage where you make the same payment all the way through, which I never really understood, but.
But that's what I thought when we built it. It was gonna be 5 years out of this variable rate. Until we got some equity and got it paid down some, then we're gonna lock, and the interest rates was lower, then we're gonna lock it in. That's what I thought the conversation was with Kevin and all.
So we need some clarification.
Yeah.
Well, the bond payment was ours, that's nothing. to-
No, but yeah, you're right. But
All right, well, we can't, there's no more we can do about that number tonight. Hopefully we can get some good information between now and the time we have to put that one to bed, but that, as of right now, Brett, I'm guessing that would be the only thing that would change. Would be
One other question was that we discussed 3 weeks ago. There was a question, I think it was about the electricity, that line. We weren't sure about that number. Or propane, I guess it was. Thought it was electricity.
it was propane.
Propane. I didn't know if we ever got anything on that, if we knew.
I bet, I just taking a shot in the dark here, Brett, but I bet that's just, one was probably delivered, the last one, probably June 30th instead of July 2nd. And it went into that fiscal year versus the year before.
Propane prices are going
And
really
propane went
high.
up some too, but I don't think we used any more. I think it was just when it was delivered, probably.
Well, we had some pre-buy too.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
pre-buy most of yours.
Yeah, my flag of that was just because we're almost at the budget, and I'm hoping that we obviously have enough to get us through the next few months. But if it's a pre-buy, then maybe we're fine, and our fill would be at the beginning of July.
Well, there's two 2,000-gallon tanks there, so if they're full now, if that were just filled recently, they should
Yeah.
take us through.
But this looks great, Brett. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. Valerie, you asked me a question a couple hours ago about a capital number. Is this an appropriate time to talk about that?
You can just email it to me if you have it.
Okay. No, I don't. That's what I wanted to bring up because
Oh.
when I was actually asking for capital numbers a few weeks ago, there were some discrepancies in numbers.
Right.
It sounds like, I don't know what the practices are in the business office, money maybe, get moved around, borrowed from funds and stuff, and I was short money. So I don't know what I'm working off right now, and I really like to know what I'm working off. So I can't provide you an accurate plan until I have a solid number.
No, I appreciate that. I was running into similar problems today when I was also trying to work on the broader capital plan. So.
Yeah.
So you're short money in those capital funds, Brett? Or you're
Yeah,
thinking you're
the
short?
balances aren't what they should be according to, the numbers we've been using for years, taking
Okay.
into consideration what the town already put forward towards the purchase of their new pumper. I had a lengthy conversation with Sharon. She was great. But I know, like I said, I don't do numbers. So whatever magic you
Yeah.
folks work in the business office.
There's only, there is the possibility that the sale of one of those vehicles, the money could have got put somewhere else. So that would be one place to look. If you think you're short a significant amount of money, that's a possibility that the sale of one of the two trucks, the money didn't get allocated to the right account.
I
I mean,
think
that would
Sharon,
be-
we straightened that out, but I thought we
Yeah.
confirmed that they did get deposited into the fire department's capital fund.
It looked like they did. I know
But
last I
perhaps
knew,
you guys can follow up on that. That'd be great.
yeah, I'll follow up with Peter because he said he hadn't moved any of the capital funds into their accounts, so it's a little hard to tell what's there.
Mhm. And when would you need these numbers by? Valerie?
Well, ideally, before the next meeting so that we can
Sure.
something, but it's not,
So should
it's not
I
something
be
that the select
communicating
board.
with Mr. Ryan?
Sure. It's not something that the select board has to adopt. There's not a time deadline really, but it's I'm trying to update the tool so that we get a big picture look at our capital needs so that we know if we can evaluate whether we're putting appropriate resources in the reserve funds or if we need to move things around a little bit, perhaps just for 1 year or just whatever. But right now we have a really good picture.
What I can do is send you the plan that I work off today, the one I update as we generate revenue, whether it be from the sale of a fire truck or the sale of some air packs as we sold last year to the Moncton Fire Department, or expenses, that are applied towards these accounts. So
That would
I'll
be
give you
great.
what I've been working off of.
That would be great.
Brett, can you also send me how much you think you're off by so that I have something to track to see if
Sure.
there's
Well, I think what would be easier for me, Anthony, is if I just send you and Valerie what I'm working off of,
Yeah.
and what I'm working off is what I think is supposed to be there.
Okay.
So if there's a difference, we'll have to figure out
Yeah.
why.
And Anthony, the details sheets that you printed out for me for the reserve funds was very helpful.
yeah.
And if you're in the office tomorrow and if I'm in the office tomorrow, I'm going to have some questions for you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We're just literally going through pretty much we're at the tail end of the audit, so we're going through everything anyway, so it's just
Right.
good to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess lastly, Valerie, if it would be our discussion earlier today regarding the phone call I received last week, is that anything I need to brief our board on?
I don't think so. You sent an email to everybody, right, about it?
Oh, I sent it to you and Ian.
Okay. No, you're welcome to. Sure. You've got the
Well,
floor.
just for transparency, interestingly enough, I think it was Friday, I received a phone call from the Addison Independent, who was inquiring about firefighter compensation. Thought the timing was interesting. So apparently at the Middlebury Select Board meeting a week ago, I think today, the AI was covering, and Chief Shaw of the Middlebury Fire Department was there presenting his budget, and they were talking about wages. And I think he was putting forth some increase in some hourly wages for his firefighters. And Chief Shaw had given me a courtesy call a day or two later to say, hey, let you know, the Addison Independent was inquiring and they may reach out to you, as, I think they know. And I may have said to them that, we know Bristol Fires receive some type of compensation. Don't know exactly what it is, what it looks like, but I did receive a call from a reporter Friday. It was Mr. John Flowers of the Addison Independent, and he was asking some questions and I was answering them. And I asked him, as our conversation was unfolding, said what I was doing tonight, coming before you folks to talk about compensation, looking at the possibility of compensating firefighters for required training and other. But I said I would have more information for you if you would be willing to wait until tomorrow morning, the 18th. So I do have an interview scheduled with Mr. Flowers tomorrow morning at 8:15 a.m. because it sounds like they're running a story in their edition later this week about firefighter compensation. So if it's acceptable, I'd like to be able to speak about what we discussed tonight with Mr. Flowers. And is that all right with all you folks?
Yeah, I think it's fine as long as you let them know that it's proposed budget changes that's gonna bring this forward. I mean, that way, if something happens, we're covered.
Certainly. No, it's I will be defending you folks. That's my job. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Brett.
Yes, thank you.
That's all I got.
Alrighty, we're gonna plug on. General fund sections.
So I'm trying to switch gears and update that file with the new numbers that we have. I didn't get as far as the trash relocation, but so I emailed the file or a link to the file to folks. How does the select board have a preference on how you'd like to do this? I can put the file on the screen. We can scroll through different sections, or just jump to the bottom line.
What's your pleasure?
Let's take a look at that bottom line.
That'll determine how much we have to look at the other.
Right.
So I believe this captures everything. And what I have for the bottom line is an increase in 2% increase in taxes, or the net supported by taxes. But if we're using this current grand list figure, it looks as though overall, 2% increase in taxes.
And that's with the change, the fire department, the current fire department changes in the
Everything.
yeah.
And currently, the compensation proposals that were previously discussed are also reflected in these numbers. So if we meet in executive session and review those figures again, those numbers might change, if there are any adjustments.
But this
Hey,
is.
Val.
Go ahead, Ian.
Sorry. No, never. You say figure. It's okay.
I was just saying, this is where we stand with the numbers we have right now. The total for everything is 2%.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead, Ian.
No, I was just going to say, so I'm looking at the live file. Mine says 1.8. Is it just because you haven't saved, Val? Or I guess it's saved. I'm just curious why it was different.
Well, it should be. Let me see if I'm using the right. Okay. I updated the wrong file, but not a problem.
Sorry to be a stickler. I just want to make sure that the links that we have is what we'll see if we want to look at it tomorrow or something.
Right, because I have a. There. Yeah, I have the general file name, and then I also save a copy with today's date as a backup. And the one I just updated, but I just
Ian,
saved-
you're gonna have to get out of it because it's not gonna save something or other.
No, it'll be fine. I think we'll be all right. Let's just see. here.
No, she just got a message that said it already exists.
Oh, really? Just because I'm
It
looking
says
at it? That's
locked.
interesting.
Yeah, it says
Okay.
it's locked, so it's probably because Ian's looking at it.
Huh,
Hmm.
that's weird. Okay, I'm out of it now.
Looking at it, Ian.
Well, that shouldn't happen. If I'm just looking at it, it should still be able to save.
Agreed.
I guess
Can you
because
just say overwrite
it's a,
now on the screen?
it's a, I'm out of it now, so you should be fine. It's probably because we have editing privileges, that's why.
Could be.
Hey Val, on the screen, it just said, asks you to overwrite it. If you can do that
Huh.
without having to find it again.
I'm gonna stop sharing because I can't see what you're seeing. So, on here. Oh, there we go.
Yawned and fogged out my glasses.
Okay, I don't have a game tonight. I had to been home by then.
You had what?
I'm supposed to have them close to Middlebury tonight. They canceled at 2 o'clock. It was still snowing pretty good. And then at 3 o'clock, it just stopped. The sun came out. And we could have gone on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blow my nose. Not amongst yourselves.
Okay, let's try this again. So there we have it.
So if I click
That's
the link that you sent,
general file.
all right, let's see. Sorry to be a pain
Oh,
about
no,
that.
no. Yeah, it's fine.
No, the link I have still has one point. That's fine. We'll go off yours. I just want to make sure that is updated tomorrow so we can see it.
Yep.
Okay, so two's pretty dang good. I mean, are there any things that surprises that we've yet to experience with regard to the overall budget?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I think when we get to capital reserves and allocations to reserves, we might need to make some adjustments. For example, the appraisal. We've been alerted that we probably need to begin a reappraisal. It's a multi-year project, but that reserve fund needs a boost. And at the same time, the sidewalk reserve fund, we didn't do sidewalks last year. So that's pretty healthy. Right,
Well, we're supposed to let those out to bid anytime now.
right, February,
Okay.
right.
Oh, God, I just drew a blank. That's great.
So anyway, but that's something I'll be prepared to talk about. If not before next meeting, then definitely at the next meeting.
So Valerie, this 2% has nothing to do with, I mean, the highway, the 125,000 in capital paving,
No,
that's still there.
that's a different fund.
Yeah, but it's still taxable. That's what I'm
Right.
trying to get at.
It's not in this. It's not in that number.
Yes, it is.
It is in that number.
Yes,
With
voted
last
It
year's,
was last year's, no increase in that number, no increase in the sidewalk number, but they're still there.
Right.
I see capital roads, paving, capital.
okay.
Twice the machine.
So
At
they
the
just
moment,
haven't
they're proposed the same as last year.
whether-
Okay, that's
whether
what
we're
I'm
gonna adjust
asking.
them or not. Yeah, okay.
So if we go with the same amount, and we're looking at them there now, put that same amount back into all those reserve funds, we'd still be at 2%.
Correct.
Okay.
I remember my question now. Any word on undesignated funds?
No. The
Any idea
audit-
based on your numbers?
Unaudited, let's say that's unaudited funds. What do you think?
Well, that's her numbers.
That's her number. Yeah, no, it's pretty close. It's always pretty close. What's
It
Anthony?
was in a couple million.
Well, if you look at what was budgeted and taxes were raised for last year versus what was spent, there should be a pretty healthy undesignated reserve fund. Because we raised taxes in anticipation of the expenses, but not all the expenses, let's see, I'm in the wrong year here. There we go. Still,
Is that 2.289?
yeah, right here, that's the actual from 2021 versus what budgeted. So add the difference to what was there before. I think it's probably pretty healthy. And again, if looking up, one reason for that, recreation. Where are the revenues here? The recreation revenues, we budgeted for 105. But the expenses also were less. We budgeted 70 in expenses, but
They were both about 50 off.
Right.
right, yeah. And more on down the line, 5,000 there. That's on par, but overall, you can see.
Valerie, could it, for my knowing, and maybe for the rest of the board, could we have that, we call it, Peter and I called it an unaudited amount you think we're going to come in for this year, undesignated fund, unaudited designated fund for next meeting, so we could kind of figure out, you know.
If there's a capital fund we want to beef up or.
Right,
You
right,
know,
yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
idea,
That capital building has taken an awful hit in the last 3-4 years.
right,
And we still got more work to do on this building and some other buildings, and we still got a green barn over there that we're thinking about doing something to.
right,
And that would be a totally separate, that would be a totally separate article. So if we wanted to put it into any capital fund, it would come from there and go there, and it wouldn't affect taxes at all. And we could
Right.
still keep our numbers.
right, we did that a couple of years ago,
Right.
paid off some debt,
Put some extra in the sidewalk. Do we
yeah,
have any?
Yeah.
Do we have any debt that would be beneficial for us to?
We paid the South Street Bridge off.
I'd have to look, I don't have that right at hand without stopping the share screen.
You had, didn't you you have that all on that spreadsheet you developed for our.
Right, and that's what I've been trying to update, but as Brett noted, some of the dots don't connect.
Okay, so if that was, if we could have that, that might help us figure out.
Absolutely,
If we have some short-term debt that paying off would. And I'm sure that's where some of where our money has come from is the fact that we've made decisions to pay some of those debts down, so we haven't had to raise taxes.
right. Yeah, in the highway department, one of the loans was paid off. Let's see, indebtedness right here. So that freed up some capacity.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
See,
then,
there's another-
it's the same way with the fire department. We don't have bonds for trucks anymore, so,
Right,
that it makes a big difference. And it saved us some money as well, so.
Right.
mhm,
I guess why I asked that question, Valerie, was, since we've had the trouble with, and we had to sell the fire truck because of the cracked frame, and we've had not a good discussion, we've had somewhat of a little bit of a discussion with Brett about maybe looking at trading them every 20 years instead of 25 years. Well, that has to do something to his capital vehicle reserve fund. It's got to be beefed up, and maybe this would be the time, if we have, looks like, maybe I won't say a number there, good reserve fund, to try to put some extra into that, and look what a 20-year bond would be on fire trucks versus a 25-year on the bigger trucks.
I think that's something that we need to take a little more time and
I
talk
agree.
to. I had a conversation with St. Albans Town Fire Chief, and he's on a 12 to 15-year rotation. He's getting better than $100,000 for his trucks. So, the bottom line is you're running a piece of equipment that you're not repairing, and you're selling something that's worth something. So, in the end, if it's the same dollars and you're not repairing, you're saving money. So I definitely something that we need to take a closer look at.
Yeah.
So for the undesignated, like you said, we, had some of the other funds. I'd love to see more sidewalks. I know we're looking at Munsell, scoping study or about the potential for sidewalk there. So that might be, I don't know if that's in this time frame though. But we could definitely add more. It seems like we're always short on that, especially the repairs. And I know that we've got a bunch of repairs and updates coming this year. And it'd be nice to see a little bit more money. We had, the pedestrian safety committee and they had, they presented, and we've put a little bit more money in the public works department budget, but we've only covering some of like the line striping, things like that. Other items that they presented, we didn't put in money for. So it might be nice maybe to use some of that as well.
I think, thinking out loud that might be a good place for some of the ARPA money. That it really benefits all our surrounding communities. I was having a conversation with Bruce, and he's telling me that, he meets people from Starksville who come down here to walk the sidewalks, and Moncton, and, he's out walking, so he's meeting them on a regular basis. So, that's something that serves, I feel a lot better putting money into something that serves everybody than I do. We talked about water line. I'm not comfortable doing water line, but if we're going to do the water line, I'm comfortable using that money to repave the street because everybody drives on the street.
Yeah.
And I think that's where my priorities are going to lie, is in the number of people that benefit from the expending that money is going to rate higher on my priority list than the one that, benefits Joel because he gets a new water line down Pine Street. I don't feel that not that I don't want a new water line down Pine Street, but I don't feel serving those 50 or 75 houses down Pine Street is the appropriate use.
38.
Right.
38. Okay. So, I just think that for the use our sidewalks are getting and when we're putting them in and raising them and making them where they're lasting, and we're on we've shortened it, but we were on 100-year replacement cycle. That's a place where we definitely could do something.
Or a combination. ARPA funds, like, obviously put forward for those for certain sections, and then use some of the undesignated just to sort of beef up the sidewalk a little bit as well.
Well, we've got a fairly good number there.
That's true. But I know that we have a bunch coming down, and especially new ones too, or the potential for new ones.
One of the things I hope this new committee will do is help update the sidewalk inventory. The one I'm working from, Peter Coffey did back in 2016. And some projects we've completed, but I think it's worth revisiting if there are other priorities, other segments, how we should be sequencing them. Because the next up is putting the East Street section back out to bid.
Yeah.
And it also anticipated a section on Park Place.
Oh yeah.
And like 100 feet of it. And then we also doing two separate projects, putting the next one in the list also out to bid, but I haven't drawn up any details about that yet.
So you think the ones that Peter did that said poor, they didn't move up the list and got better? We just put extremely poor. He put average on them, now we put poor. Redo that list very easy. If they said excellent, we just put average now on them.
And I'm sure there's some, I think part of the priority would be, one of the things I've heard lately is you should salt your sidewalks. Well, we salt our sidewalks when they melt. It's all going to run to the low spots. And maybe if we're going to, if we're thinking we're going to try to spend a pile of money on sidewalks, that may be some of the areas we look at changing. Even though the sidewalk is decent, it's not winter walkable sidewalk or rainstorm walkable sidewalk.
That's a good.
How do we get some fancy heated sidewalks all through town?
Ooh.
a district heat system.
Yeah. We're gonna need more solar panels in. You're gonna put heat coils in there. We're gonna need something to run them.
The same system as a tile floor. that you
Yeah.
put all that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Are there any sections you want to visit?
Is everybody comfortable with 2%?
Yep.
Michelle?
It's better than 3.
No, I just want to caveat that the numbers, we are subject to change based upon updating some of those figures we talked about, and also just final review of the compensation.
Right, but we'll have all of that next week.
Right.
Yeah. You'll let us know when it gets to 5, Val.
You're gonna see me jump up and down, scream, yell at 5. Valerie, we're gonna have it to put to bed next week, because I won't be here on the 31st. I've
You-
got a ball game. 2 weeks from tonight, I won't be here.
At all?
I don't think any of us will be here on the 31st.
Right.
That's why I
The
asked the
24th.
question. We're putting it to bed next Monday night.
Correct. Yep, next week.
All right,
Okay.
well then we're not ready to do capital improvement tonight or capital plans?
No, I'm afraid not.
Okay. Then we will move on. Continued review of draft town meeting and police warnings. Determine whether town meeting will be in person or Australian ballot.
Let's see here.
Have they?
Yes.
They have?
Yep.
You don't even know the question, you're saying yes.
The governor
Yeah.
signed today.
Governor signed the
I know
legislation.
what you're gonna ask.
Hey, you know what? Geez, that's pretty scary. And if you're into my head, you better be careful.
That's how
Only,
we're going.
only for this one question, thank goodness.
So I guess that's the first thing we ought to address.
Right.
I feel, as Val mentioned in her TA report, moving to the same methods that we did last year. I think that's
So
the
we would-
safest option, even though, our numbers are still very high. I think it's just very, very difficult to ask people to come to an in-person meeting. And I think the 2 informational meetings worked last year. We can call on our new moderator, and she can help with that. And then we move everything to Australian ballot.
So my question with that is that, do we still have to have a in-person public presence for people who want to show up? Or are we totally remote like we were last year?
Correct. The state has allowed us to be remote for this particular thing. Or it's our
Totally
choice,
remote.
I guess.
Well,
Totally remote.
I didn't read that. I read it said it'll allow you to go to everything Australian ballot.
No,
But
it's also the town meeting as well.
I
Right.
guess I didn't read it that way, but that's why I'm asking the question, because I thought it would still give, kind of like our select board meeting, somebody has to be in a public presence if somebody wants to show up. So I didn't know if the town meeting was the same way.
It's not a town meeting though, it's just informational.
But it's still a public meeting.
True.
Sharon
Sharon,
is shaking her head
am I right in that, Sharon, or am I interpreting that incorrectly?
Trying to find the email from the Secretary of State's office. I believe you don't have to have in person. It'll be the same as last year. We just had the informational by Zoom.
Will the last informational meeting be Monday night, February 28th?
Yes,
Correct.
because they have to be within 10 days of the actual Australian ballot.
So we do-
Traditionally,
we're
we've
gonna
done
do
2.
Yeah,
Yes.
we've done 2. Yeah.
Just to try to capture as many people as we can in terms of, because I know it's not everyone is able to use Zoom or has that capability. So unfortunately, but hopefully if someone is interested in the meetings, they would find a way to do it at one of those meetings.
So refresh my memory, what were the informational meetings last year only by Zoom, or did we have a hybrid?
No, they were
They were
only.
Only by
We
Zoom.
Zoom
were-
only.
Yeah, we were all home for that. We weren't even here.
Okay,
And I think that's what,
right.
that's
Yeah,
what
we
was-
we paid a little bit more for Zoom, and we increased just in case the numbers were incredibly high that were attending. I don't know if we need to do that this year, but it's something we should consider. But yeah, it was all informational, and and one of the meetings, each of the meetings we just read out and read through each of the articles and responded to questions that viewers had about that. And I think if we lock this in tonight and make a decision, then obviously we can start posting information on Front Porch Forum and get people in the know about how it's going to happen this year. And essentially, revisiting what was done last year as well, and reminding people about the Australian ballot and how that works, and how it'll be for all articles. And I guess the one thing was the certain things we had concerns about where we were questioning, because the decision has to be made on the floor, and how do you do that by Australian ballot? What was that again? Wasn't it our main budgets? It was kind of like, what happens if it doesn't pass or something? I know we had questions about that last year.
Well,
If it doesn't pass, we have to revise it and have another meeting.
Yeah, I guess
Basically.
so.
It's no different than if it doesn't pass from the floor. I mean, they can modify it from the floor and pass it then.
Right, maybe that was it. It was the modification that we didn't have the ability to do that. And that's,
Right.
we were wondering about that, but I think we presented each article, and then they just voted on that. There wasn't any way to change that, but at least we gave, with the informational meetings, people had the ability to ask questions about it, and we answered.
Mhm.
Yeah, and what it says is the informational meetings that are required to be held within 10 days before the meeting may be held by electronic means without designating a physical location. A telephone option, though, must be provided to access the hearing if feasible, and the hearing must be recorded if possible.
Yep, and we can do each of those. I mean, Zoom obviously has a recording, and it has a telephone call in too.
Right.
So. Yeah, and we could also, I mean, there is the option. It was just done for the solar presentation a couple of weeks ago. It was a little Zoom add-on that does the webinar. And I can't remember if we did that last year. Maybe we did, or maybe we didn't, but it gives you the ability where we can be the participants, and we can be on with cameras and microphones, and everyone else, voters, can be able to connect, and they can ask questions through the chat, as opposed to having to be on camera and having to be on audio. And that was a way that it's a little bit more, you can facilitate it a little bit more. So we could look into that. It worked quite well, I thought, for the solar presentation, and we might want to look at it for these informational meetings.
if you just want to designate one of us to keep an eye on the chat.
Yeah, and it's easy because it's just a Q&A. It's right there. It's part of the Zoom with the webinar. And then you can type in your question. People can ask questions all the way through, and then you can go through and say that it's been answered and choose how you want to answer it. So it's an option we could look at.
It's easy.
So you want a motion then, Valerie? Motion?
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea.
I'll make a motion that we have town meeting and the police district warning meeting by Zoom for 2022.
Second.
Further discussion.
And does that include having the town meeting be all Australian ballot?
Yes.
Yes.
Thought I said that.
I know you didn't,
No, yeah.
but I let it slide, because I assumed.
You know
Further
what they say.
discussion? Yeah, be quiet. All those in favor signify by saying aye, raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Who
Motion carried.
seconded?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that decision, Sharon? I know it's less work on your office. But is that, I mean, that doesn't pose any issues in terms of moving this to the informational and,
No, it just makes the ballot longer and it'll be more expensive for that, but it is what it is. We have the setup from last year, so I can modify it and put the new pieces and parts on it and take the ones off that don't need to be there.
okay. Yeah, it was pretty long ballot before.
So are we gonna ask the question if they want to move everything to Australian ballot?
We can't ask that this time.
No, you have to do it because we're a floor and a ballot one. They specifically said you cannot ask to have everything moved when we're doing this special permission piece that we have. So that's a no-go.
Right.
All right, and then the other thing that was asked in the email was what we were gonna do about getting ballots out. I am, how many, how do I say this to make it come out right? How many people voted that don't typically vote numbers wise when we mailed them to everybody? Did we get them back from everybody, or did we still have basically the same voter turnout?
We had more voter turnout, but we had a lot of people that threw the ballots out, so we had to reissue them when they came in, and they have to sign an affidavit saying that they don't have it and they haven't voted it. So if you send it to everybody, it's a lot of work.
Waste of money? A waste of money?
Yeah, to me it is, because the general election, they voted to make it mandatory, but the Secretary of State pays for it. But for our local ones in the election in August, if we did that, we'd have to pay for it. And you have to provide a return envelope. And I did a quick look today, and it would probably be almost $6,000 just for if we send to our 3,100 voters that we have. If the, I did a estimate on how much the original one would be going out, probably 80 or 90 cents, and then coming back it'd be 53 hopefully. And by the time you send those all out, and then some of them will just come back because people don't have the correct address, even though we do purges.
So I would be inclined to lean towards only providing them for to absentee ballots or at home ballots for the people who requested them.
Me too.
Right.
Because a number of people still showed up to vote when we had the election. They came through and voted here. I mean, we had amazing in person.
Well, it was amazing to me to think that some people thought it was a different ballot if they came in person. And it's like, no, what you got in the mail is exactly what you're voting on here. So
why don't we, I mean, if that's what everybody's in favor of, I'd entertain a motion to only send the ballots to people who requested them.
I
Yeah,
think, no, given the circumstances, I think that's fine. I think we have information from the previous time we've done this. And it's a large chunk of money for what seems like not much return. And I know it's a more democratic way to do that, but there's also a lot of complication. I do think we have a very good voter turnout, at least, decent in terms of on the day. I think people in Bristol really like doing that and want to do that. So I think by request is fine. My only caveat would be that in our front porch forum postings in our Facebook, that we just make light of that and highlight that as much as possible, just so people know that you need to request if you want to request it.
there's also another new item that we have to do is if we get a ballot back and we determine that it's not valid, like they didn't put it in the envelope, they didn't sign the certificate envelope, we have to contact them within 3 days to see if they want to come in and rectify their error.
Yeah.
So that's an additional thing that they just voted that we're going to have to start doing, which is going to be difficult because with cell phones and whatnot these days, I won't necessarily have phone numbers for them.
Yeah.
Sharon, what would happen if they, mailing out, maybe it did happen last year, that ballot got there 3-4 days late back and you'd already counted them all?
You can't, they're they're defective, you don't even open
Have to
them.
be back by a certain date.
They have
So
to be
if somebody
back by
dropped it in the
7
mail-
PM on the day of voting.
Oh, okay, somebody dropped it in the mail on the Saturday before the voting on Tuesday.
And if
and
it
you
doesn't
didn't
get
it,
here, then
it's
Yeah.
junk.
it doesn't get counted.
Oh, okay.
And again, I mean, that time too, there were more issues with the postal service. There was a lot of problems with that, people with delays and things like that. I think, just having people request, I think is the safer option than mailing these all out and then having, I think I see more complication mailing them all out to everybody and just getting them back.
Request or come in and vote early, once the
Yes.
ballots are ready.
Right. And the ballot box was a huge help too, because a lot of people put them in there.
Yeah. And that was in our wording that we sent out in terms of you could request it. You could either mail it in if you were concerned about the US Postal Service and it getting there, you can come and there was a ballot
Drop it,
box.
right.
So, yeah. Okay.
I think,
I'm,
whoops, sorry, remind me if I'm wrong, Sharon, but I think one of the things we did, because I remember helping out at that time and people got really backed up, like waiting outside. And it didn't Jen like hand out was it the whole ballot or just the affidavit ahead of time? So
The
that they would have that-
affidavit. So
Affidavit.
that was the big issue because people had to fill out an affidavit if they didn't bring their ballot with them. Because then you have to worry about, are they voting twice? Did we already process them somewhere and they're coming through and it's going through again?
I do
So,
think, oops, sorry, Sharon.
Go
I do
ahead.
think, Sharon, you oughta really try having it upstairs, the voting upstairs, not down here. I thought it was very crowded down here. When we don't want people to mingle or 6 feet apart, you can't hardly do it 6 feet apart coming in there and going out that way. I just
right,
think
when
it's-
we got backed up, it was a problem. So I'm in agreement with doing it back upstairs, but we need to have more defined areas and move people along so they don't congregate.
can you arrange it so you're entering through the main doors and all exiting is through the side door? Is that possible? I mean, it's the same amount of stairs, but I think usually you can enter both through one side, like left or right, and then you'd exit
Right.
from the front door. If we steered everyone down the stairs and out the side door, it seems like that might help with that.
Could be a possibility. So
Okay, 'cause
good
usually-
thought.
Usually you're putting in your ballot at the machine by that door entrance or exit anyway.
Right.
So if we
And
just
just keep going.
yeah,
Right.
we don't let people go out the front door again, even though we've got both open
Okay.
and get them out there. But I agree with
Right.
you, Jill. I think it's, now is the opportunity and we're in a much better place than we were a year ago doing this in terms of vaccination and boosting and things like that and mask wearing. I think having it in that larger space and getting a little bit more organized with our entering and exiting, I think upstairs is a very good option.
So
You want a motion to, how do you want to say that?
how do you want to say it? You're gonna make the motion.
Well, it's depending on what our choice is, right? Reinstate all town ballot, sorry, confirm whether, okay, so how do you want to say that, Val? Just the town will be mailing or ballots will only be by request or absentee ballot? What's a way to say that? Like, I'm wondering what it is now and what we're changing to, where are we just keeping it the same?
Voters,
Well,
voters will need to request a ballot. Absentee.
But isn't that how we normally do it? It was
Yes.
different last year. It was all mailed out, but do we even need a motion if this is how we normally do it?
Well, last year for town meeting, we just had them call and ask for them. The mailing that they did for everybody was done by the state. And that
Right.
was for the general election.
So do we even
have-
need a motion for this? Because we're actually not we're not changing anything. We're just doing this as normal. And the only thing I feel that we need to do is just remind people of how to get your ballot.
I think you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Just remind them, if you want an absentee ballot, please call the
You need
office.
to
So just make
Yeah.
sure it's posted a couple of times. on
Yeah,
Public Forum and-
I've got wording that I can use from last year in
needs
terms
to
of
be in the
dropping off. So
office.
I can tweak that and then make sure that it gets out there.
And it needs to be in the office by 7 o'clock town meeting night.
Yep. Yeah, that was on there, either dropping it off or being, and the return date was on. And I'll just change it where it's, if you want a ballot, you need to request it
Yeah,
or
Yeah,
come on the day.
is a good way to go too. Okay.
Are we good with that for now? Is there any other town meeting stuff we want to discuss right at the moment?
Now, there were drafts of the warnings included in the packet, but since they're going to be substantially reformatted, and I did get a suggestion from Michelle that the police district warning be, the language in the first sentence or the first section be edited to in the same manner that the other one was, with the help of our new moderator. So unless folks want to look at the drafts tonight, we might want to wait till the next meeting and make any final tweaks then.
I'd say let's wait.
And just so you know, if you haven't looked at it, we did get the cannabis one, got all the required signatures, so that will be on the
Okay.
ballot.
What is it? What is the request?
To sell marijuana in town.
Right.
Is that it for to be able to sell in?
Oops, wrong one.
Are you bringing it up? I can't remember
was-
exactly what it said.
Right. I was
You
working.
can just paraphrase.
File.
Basically, it wants the town to allow retail sales of cannabis.
Pretty much, yeah.
I thought that the select board had the authority to even bring that to the ballot box. In that law.
Why do you-
That if the board didn't want to bring that up, they didn't have to. I thought that's, didn't.
Yeah,
without-
but now you have a petition with the required number of signatures. You don't have a choice.
What it says is, shall the town of Bristol permit the operation of licensed cannabis retailers, subject to such municipal ordinance and regulation as the select board may lawfully adopt and implement pursuant to BSA, blah, blah, blah.
I didn't read it, so I was just curious as to what it said. I saw that they had submitted the petition, but I didn't know what they were looking for. Well, that's a one way to bring people to Bristol.
That's right.
If it passes.
I mean, it's
Jimmy, you liked that one,
inevitable.
didn't you? I said that for your benefit.
The town of
It's inevitable.
Starksboro's got it on theirs.
Yep, exactly. So we might as well face it and not shy away from it and deal with it in the best way we can. And we've had this discussion before in terms of how it should be brought and how it should be implemented and the best ways to do that. So it's
Well, if the general public ends up that the general public doesn't want it, it saves us a lot of times trying to regulate it.
Right.
that's true.
There's no sense in putting the cart before the horse and go
Yes.
and make all the regulations and then have them vote it down. Let them vote
Exactly.
it down and then we don't have to deal with it. Or if they voted in, then we know we have to deal with it. Grant application approval request from a Hub Teen Center to Neat Repeats. Grant for winter weather gear.
So moved.
Have a
Second.
motion and a second. Further discussion. This is a zero match grant application. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Michelle.
I said aye.
Okay, I didn't hear you.
We didn't see you light up.
Yeah, you didn't light up. That's what I was looking for. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. I'm sorry, Michelle. I should have had the nay vote before I asked you if I heard.
I didn't fall
Didn't
asleep
imply-
yet.
I was gonna say, she's tired,
Yeah, I know.
poor Michelle.
Okay. Minutes, review
There are
approval.
no,
of
there are
minutes.
no new minutes to review.
Okay. Select board roundtable. This is not a regular meeting. Do we want to do the roundtable? Ian, go ahead.
I'm good.
Michelle,
I'm good.
Carla,
I'm good.
Joel. Nothing other than budget on
Oh, okay.
budget meetings. No, if you've got something that's
Well,
on your
no, I
mind
just,
there.
Ian, I spoke to Richard about the recycling thing, throwing it in there.
Oh,
Spoke to
okay.
Don at Addison County Solid Waste, and yeah, if there's a coffee cup or a poop bag, they're finding poop bags in the recycling because they think they're plastic. It all goes right in the trash. I told Richard, tell your driver, when you look in that thing, and he sees it, I want you to turn over to the business and just look up and wave and just don't. Because you're being watched, so. But I says, don't get yourself, Don says, yeah, he'll get fined if he brings recycling that's got any kind of decontamination in it, we can charge him, so. He says, Don said at the transfer station, it is extremely hard
To get clean.
to get clean recycling on a public streets like that. Like,
Okay, but
for the public to put in, he said, people put it out to the curb, it's clean because they've had a chance to do it. But
yeah. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you very much for speaking to him.
Possible.
I appreciate that.
I wonder if there's not a need for some public education on that, maybe some front porch forum posts on
Yeah.
what can and can't go in those street
Yeah.
recyclables.
Yep. If Sharon wants to do that, I don't do front porch for
No, no.
But
I
I know.
wasn't asking you to, Joel.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I had, Peter. I just want to follow up.
Okay.
with Dean.
I don't have anything. Valerie,
Just a couple quick updates to let you know that the Munsell Avenue sidewalk scoping study is, we're planning to do a kickoff meeting in February of the stakeholders and other folks who want to be involved in the project, or at least, or learn more about it. And we'll review the schedule, and at some point there'll be a local concerns meeting. So that'll be a public meeting to solicit public input on future sidewalk opportunities on Munsell Avenue. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that the Stony Hill Business Park infrastructure project is essentially complete. There are a few final punch list items that need to wait until spring to be completed, but it's essentially complete. There is a little snafu with the driveway entrance to the apartments, the proposed apartments, where an electrical vault was installed, constructed and installed in a size that was larger than what the plan called for. And so that required the driveway to be shifted. So the housing folks are in the process of trying to deal with that adjustment in their site plan. Other than that, everything has gone very smoothly, and we're in the final stages of figuring out the cash flow, but it's all looking good.
Eric.
And that's all I have. The rest has
All
been
right.
budget.
Other business correspondence? Nothing? Do we have an executive session
I would recommend a brief one.
for
Personnel matters.
Well,
Michelle?
I make a motion, we enter into executive session to discuss personnel matters per 1 VSA section 313, whatever subsection it is, and I'm going to the bathroom.
Wait a second.
For that announcement.
Joel seconded.
Joel seconded, yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll
Opposed,
take
nay.
a 5-minute break perhaps while we
Motion
shift.
carried. All right, sounds good.